This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday Sunrise Safari here from Djuma Private Game Reserve in the northeast corner of sunny South Africa. That was the camera, which appears to have a small hangover. My name is James Hendry, and on camera today we have got Sebastian Rombai. There we go, marvellous stuff. We also have Tristan joining us from the Mara later, if the tech team can manage to send a signal out of that particular area, and Brentley Smith is on foot today. In the final control, we welcome the, well, slightly aggressive tones of Kirsten McLennan-Smith back to the director's chair. I'm not sure who is on D2 today. Who is it? Alexandra is taking your questions and comments, which you can send to us using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter or use the chat stream on YouTube. Let us have one last look at the sunrise. Did you hear that, Sebastian?
Yes.
Let us see if it calls again. It has stopped. There it is, everybody. The woodland kingfisher has begun to call. Soon they will be chasing each other through the skies, shouting their heads off, trying desperately to attract mates with their rather monosyllabic song. Not monosyllabic, monotonal song. Bitonal. There are two tones in it. That's very gorgeous indeed. Let's see what else we can hear. That swizzling sound, that is a white-bellied sunbird. There's even a little batis going. Couple of Birchall starlings. But all of it drowned out, of course, by the very enthusiastic woodland kingfisher. Stunning morning. My plan today is to see if we can find one of Tingana or the Avoca male. Both were seen at the Dam Cam. Well done, tech team, for fixing it. At about 8:15 last night. Tracks of the male go north. I suspect he's probably crossed out of our domain into Bivelshoek, which is the reserve to the north of us. And Tingana's tracks I have yet to see, so I'm going to head around probably towards Galago Pan, which is another waterhole very close to camp, and see what we can pick up over there. Apparently we are now going up to the Masai Mara, to the viewer's favourite presenter in the Mara, and a better sunrise that I am offering you now. Wow. Oh, no, we're not. The tech team cannot get a signal out of there, so now you have to stay with me, obviously, I'm afraid, with my inferior sunrise. That was Kirsten who set that up, everybody. It's not my fault. I'm sorry about that. Now apparently we can link to Brentley Smith with the sunrise. Let's see if his is better than mine. It's the same one.
Of course mine's better than yours, James. It's mine, and I'm up high while you're down low. And I have the Batman on camera. Good morning, my name is Brentley Smith, and I'm on bushwalk this morning. And we're going to see if we can find a kitty cat or three. So we're going to see if we can find any tracks. And I can see James sitting down there on Central Road, so we're going to check down Philemon's, and then to the south and to the east. Maybe the Nkahuma Pride has come back. Maybe we'll find some sign of Tundi. Who knows? But I think it's going to be a spectacular morning out here. Remember, if you have any questions, hashtag SafariLive on Twitter, or just pop your questions in the YouTube feed. Now, we are carefully scouting for tracks of Tingana. He possibly might have gone this way, or we might have gone that way. We're not sure, but we don't want to check the same areas as James, because that defeats the object of two of us being out here. But so far, no tracks. Thank you very much, Tim. Tim says I should get my own show in the future. Well, Tim, you never know what happens. I don't currently have my own show, but you never know what might happen in the future. But yes, that would be very nice, wouldn't it, Tim? Thank you. Okay, now this is a favorite spot of all the records to walk through. Caroline's wondering, have we found the new hyena den? Caroline, I'm afraid I'm going to have to disagree with James. I'm pretty sure that the current den is still active. I went past there last night during rehearsal. They weren't there, but there was sign of activity there. I think there's been a lot of elephants around the den in the last while. So, speaking of hyena tracks, if you can see them there, not the easiest to see. Apparently James has just said the den is active now this morning. I'm not sure who's there. I don't think it's James. Maybe it's Jamie with the, there we go, Tingana. Oh my goodness. Craig, can you someone was keying their mic. Oh, that's what I was hearing. I think it was Craig accidentally as he bent down there. So we're on Tingana's tracks. I thought he might have headed south. It's one of his favourite routes. Comes down, Vuurtela access, has a sniff, a saw and a drink at the pan. Then he heads down towards where the hyena dens are. And then from there, he normally cuts straight across towards Treehouse Dam. And then down to the southern boundary. And then east again. Although it looks like he got sidetracked here. Oh, very shortly sidetracked, then he carried on down the road. He looks like he stopped here. What you're seeing here is he obviously heard something or saw something. So he stopped, he turned, he looked into the bushes. And if it was an impala, it probably went poof, poof, and he went bugger and carried on walking. In the meantime, let's see who's going to find Tingana first. Us or James?
Well, let's hope it's me, but I don't really mind as long as we get to see him. We're just slowly letting Sebastian sort himself out in the back. He dropped his teacup, unfortunately, while we were driving along, but don't worry, everybody, it seems to be still okay. We also have some beefalo tracks. There were 4 beefalo that came onto the reserve yesterday, wandered up to have a drink, and then I don't know where they've gone. They're somewhere up here in this rather difficult block. We're on Mvubu Road now, and apparently the hyenas are back, not at the den they've been at, but at the slightly less salubrious den that is Philemon's Cutline, where the great attack from the Avoca male took place a little while back. And now, if you didn't see that, that was quite something to behold. A male lion stalking the hyenas and then catching Corky and nearly breaking her back. Snazzy, yes, I believe that if I left Africa, I would absolutely miss the sunrises and sunsets. I think I'd miss quite a lot else too about Africa. I was actually thinking about that yesterday. My sister lives in Scotland, and she sends lovely pictures of various pretty scenes that occur from time to time in Scotland when the sun shines, which is about 4 days a year. And well, I keep thinking to myself, that looks nice, but it just don't look the same, really, does it? So yes, I think I would miss many, many things about Africa were I to be forced to leave for some reason. Not sure what possibly forced me to leave, but anyway, there it is. It wouldn't just be the sunsets and sunrises. All right, we're coming around the corner now towards the pan of Galago. Galago, Galago, Galagon. I see an impala, which is never a good sign when you're stalking a leopard, unless of course the impala itself is being stalked. Let's use them as our first mammal, shall we? They're running away. Stop running away. Wonderful sighting. Great stuff. Beautiful, our first mammal. One ram, 1 year old, one lamb, 1 week old, and one ewe. I'm not only going to hold my breath, but I'm told we can now go across to Tristan, who's in the Masai Mara with a beautiful sunset. You will probably see me again in about, I'm going to say 3 or 4 seconds.
James, so you will not die from holding your breath. You can see that we are in, well, what's probably one of the most breathtaking scenery and landscapes that we get here in Africa. We're talking about sunrise and sunsets just now, and they don't get much better than those here in the Mara. Now, it is a very good morning. It's really good to be out this side of the world, and as some of you know, my name is Tristan, as others maybe don't know. I am Tristan on camera. I've got James this morning, which is very nice. Nice to be back with James. It's been a while since I've seen James. In fact, the last time I saw James was in July, and we spent a lot of time together when I was here last time, milling about, and so it's always a pleasure to be with him. But you can see it's a beautiful, beautiful start to the day. There's a little bit of cloud cover that's around that's made for the most epic sunrise, and kind of when you look out over these plains and these trees and you've got that sort of pinkish coloration in the back, it is always very, very, very special. So nice to be here, and like I say, it's been a good kind of leave that I've had, and a good way to come back. And so far, actually, being back in the Mara has been quite nice, because I've already seen more zebra than I saw the entire time I was here last time. So I think I've seen probably double the amount of zebras than what we had when I was here last time, and I'm pretty sure I'll see more wildebeest too, because last time I was here, I don't think I actually saw one herd the whole time that I spent in the Mara itself. Now, I believe some of you are excited that I'm back. Well, it's good to be back, and it's nice to be able to talk to all of you again. It feels like forever since I was on leave. It was a nice long leave. James was very kind to me and gave me a nice 3-week leave, and it was very, very, very pleasant. I surrounded myself with pretty much all SafariLive people, in the form of going to go see Taylor in Zambia for a bit, and then going down with Brent and Jamie to the coast, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about, because I'm pretty sure Brent has told you everything there was to tell about our Cozy Bay trip. I'm sure he's had a go at me already about the fact that we went fishing and I caught nothing and he caught fish. What he probably didn't tell you, though, was that the fish that he caught, well, I don't really know if you could describe them as fish. Some of them were about the size of my pinky finger, and that doesn't really count, does it? So, you know, it wasn't a very successful fishing trip for us at all. In fact, we really failed quite miserably, and what Brent and I concluded by the end of it is that the two of us are not very good at that type of fishing that we went to go and do. Is that we were way out of our depth, and even though we got the help of a local ghillie, which is basically a guy that lives in that area that knows fishing very well, our ability to read situations and fish the way that they do down there was not very good. Both of us come from a more kind of fly fishing, artificial lure kind of background rather than bait fishing, and so it was quite funny to watch the two of us mill about and try and actually sort of do some things and try and catch fish. We didn't do it very well at all, if I'm honest. It was a bit of a mess up, but anyway. Right, so now at least we have our first animals that we can show you this morning. That's one thing about the Mara that is, you know, we can get out here. There's always these buff herds that are around. Now in Djuma, a buff herd for us is a celebration these days. We find that the buff will kind of come in and out, and they don't spend that much time, whereas out here in the Mara, you kind of get them every single day. You'll find these herds, and it's a beautiful kind of scene when you've got buffalo sort of milling about and grazing through these kind of East African plains. Now, I believe a lot of you are asking how Taylor is. Oh, she's very, very good. She's full of beans, as you can imagine. So she's in her element up in Zambia at the moment. When she was up there, she was absolutely loving her time up there, and she's in a beautiful part of the world. The Lower Zambezi National Park is also one of the most picturesque places I've been. Beautiful big anna trees with ellies that walk through it, and so she's thoroughly happy up there. And then she's now come back to South Africa, and she, as maybe some of you have seen on her various social media posts, is having lots of fun in Johannesburg, and she was at the horse racing, I believe, yesterday. So she was having a good time that side. So she's very well, she's good. She's on a very cool adventure. She leaves today, which I won't spoil. I think she wants to tell all of you about it on her various platforms, but she's going to go and do something very, very cool, and I'm a little bit jealous, to be honest. I think she's going to have the most wonderful time where she is heading. But it was really good to catch up with her. You know, we hadn't seen her for, no, I suppose it wasn't that long, it was only a couple of months, but it was interesting because she seemed completely relaxed and happy, and like I say, she was in her element, kind of doing all the things that she's doing up there. So she's doing a lot of kind of social media stuff for the camp that she's at now, and as well as all kinds of other little projects that she's going to be busy with there next year. So very, very cool to kind of have gone and visited her, and Zambia is such a beautiful country. It was very pleasant, I must be honest. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The nice thing actually was with Zambia is when we went up, we were kind of just chatting about the general animals that we see there and kind of how it goes, because I hadn't ever been to that park before, and neither had Ali. And we were talking to Taylor, and she had actually told us that the day that we arrived, they'd spotted wild dogs, which was very, very unusual because they hadn't seen dogs in over a year. And so it was very, very cool because that afternoon we went out, and as the sun was setting, we got this most epic sighting of these 3 wild dogs running through these massive anna trees, kind of plodding along, chasing little baby impalas around. And then they had this massive fight with a baboon, which was incredible because in the Savi Sands, any interaction that I've seen with baboon and wild dog, generally you find that the baboons are quite cautious, and they'll kind of move away, and they'll try and just spend some time away from the dogs. They don't really interact too much. They might chase the dogs if there's a numerical advantage, but for the most part you'll find that the dogs kind of, you know, they mutually respect each other and move off in separate directions. But there we had this young male baboon that decided that these 3 wild dogs were no good and chased these wild dogs round and round and round and had this massive fight with them, which was quite something. And I suppose you've got to be a bit careful because across the river in the Mana Pools there's a pack that actually hunts baboons, so you need to be a little bit careful. Anyway, good. We're going to carry on. We're going to go see what else we can find, see what's happening out in the Mara. While we do that though, let's send you back across to James and see how his search is going for Tingana and the Evoker.
Well, we found something. You can see that behind this bush here. It is an elephant, in case you were deeply confused, not a leopard or a lion. The reason we're looking at its tail only is that there is a tiny little calf there. Look at it. And I didn't want to start the engine because it would get a little fright. So we're just going to let it be until it moves into a place where we can see it more easily. Trunk absolutely useless at this stage of life, like a child trying to walk for the first time. Very sweet. See, it can't even put its trunk in its mouth. Trying desperately to reach up in there. There's some alarm calling, some quite strident alarm calling just south of where I'm sitting. We'll just keep listening while we watch these elephants. There are more than just these 2 here. It sounds like a herd of about maybe 8 or so. That little one is the star of the show. Look at that tiny little thing. I've always thought that the design of an elephant for suckling is really quite inconvenient for the calf. It's got to stretch its head up to try and reach the mammary or mammary glands, which are just behind the elbow there. It is amazing how all the adults in a herd will never stand on or knock over a baby. They're so aware of where they are. That thing is tiny. Mm-hmm. It can barely walk. I don't know if it's the same one we've been seeing, the one that had it swim the other day. Look at this little hair on the tail. It's Got 2 little pieces of hair. Shame, its life is already quite overwhelming, I think. All the spikes and smells and feelings of being out of the womb and straight into the African wilderness must be quite a shock. Hello, MDR. No, not really. Elephants are not particularly seasonal breeders. They probably find that there is a peak during the wetter months and that there are fewer born in the winter months. But no, they will be born any time of the year. This one was obviously perfectly timed to be born during the beginning of summer. Look at that. Just being guided by Mum. I can try and shifty forward a little bit, let's see, because the rest of the herd is actually coming. Let me just move forward. Now, I was just thinking exactly the same thing, Farron 45. No, it doesn't seem that this little baby likes the feeling of the dry grass on its feet. It probably doesn't have full calluses yet, so it's probably quite sore. We have the rest of the herd coming through here. I don't want to sort of get between them and these two. Let's give them some space in front of us, which means we won't have the best view. Is that all right, Seb?
Yeah.
But it'll be a usable view. There we go. Birds are still alarming down into the south-east of where we're sitting. In a block of tremendous thickness full of gullies. So I hope whatever is making them upset comes out onto a road. Kristen, actually pretty good. I mean, the likelihood of little babies reaching adulthood probably about 80%, 80 or 90%. They are not affected by predators greatly, you see, and nor greatly by disease. So you'll probably find that there's about an 80 to 90% chance that a little baby will make it all the way to adulthood. There are very few animals out here that have that sort of record. If you think of the predators, there's probably about sometimes as low as 10%, and sometimes up to sort of 30% chance that they'll make it to independent adulthood. Not sure why they've chosen to go around the back of us. Very inconvenient. That's precisely why we parked over here, chaps, so that you could come the other side. That's short trunk. Look at that. There's the short trunk elephant. I'm sorry about the aerials in the shot. I now can't move because I'm going to irritate them if I do. She's just looking at us. Two ladies walking across the road together on Sunday stroll, telling the kids to hurry up, not wait and look at those strange things with the green car. Miranda, no, they can't really pick up their young. They can certainly semi-lift them, though. I've never seen an elephant pick up its youngster, but I have absolutely seen them help them out of muddy situations. But actually pick them up, no. And a good example of that was when we had an elephant calf stuck in a pool where I used to work, and the mother just couldn't get it out. We had to get it out. And I forget exactly how we did it. I think somebody eventually got in the pool and shoved it out. little one is now in front of us again. Let me move slightly forward. She seems pretty relaxed. That thing is so young. How's that? There we go. Look how sweet it is. Just sheltering underneath Mum. This whole strange world, so difficult to explore. Oh, I Love Snacks. The mum was deeply distressed during the whole incident of trying to get her baby out of the pool. It really was very unpleasant because the youngster obviously was also hugely distressed and afraid. I think I'm trying to remember, I mean, it happened a few times. I think we did get into the pool and then sort of shimmied it towards the shallow end where it could stand. And then it got onto the steps, and then I think we just gave it a little shove to help it out. But the mother was standing not far away, trumpeting and in a deep state of distress. But thankfully, all's well that ends well, etc. Oh no, that's ridiculous. Look at that. Trying to be very mature. Look, Mum, I can also eat a stick. Although, of course, there'll be, I imagine, very little by way of nutrition for a little baby elephant like that in that stick. I'm also not sure how developed its teeth would be. I mean, it's a youngster. Yes, you may have just heard a little bit of scrunching around there. That's me setting up my camera for illegal photographs. That's the lens hood coming off. Maybe it is teething. That's a really good point, everybody. Maybe that's precisely why it's biting on that stick. It is so tiny. And its mother is mercifully, wonderfully relaxed. All right, well, we'll sit here for a few more minutes with these elephants, see what develops while you go back to the Marcy Mara, where Tristan Dix is on to the Mara predators.
Well, hopefully you'll have some nice things developing there. We've had developments on our side, which is very, very nice. It's probably one of the most beautiful scenes I've had in quite some time, because there in front of us, walking through a little thicket, is one of what looks like one of the Kichwa males. It's the one that's got the short tail, I think. Yes, it is. So there you go, walking through, absolutely beautiful. That's one thing about the Mara, is that the scenery with the wildlife is absolutely spectacular, and it does not get much better than that when you've got a male lion kind of striding through these open plains and then through these little forested areas. It is absolutely beautiful. Now, he is calling a little bit, and, well, not calling, I would say, there's more contacts that he's trying to make, and he's trying to kind of head his way slowly along, and you can see he's scent marking as he goes, so every now and then you'll see he'll stop, scrape his back legs, spray, and that's obviously just him marking territory as he goes. But the contact call, I would imagine, would be for him either trying to contact his coalition partner. So there is another one that we see out here, as well as maybe there's some females that could be around. There's also some ellies that are close by. I want to just get into a better position quickly, because I think the ellies might chase this male if they see him. So let's have a look quickly. I've got to remember that Keto's reverse is where first gear is. It's all opposite to what Rusty and Wendy are, so we've got to try and remember that. Now I can see the ellies have already seen him, so we're going to just try and get around quickly. Right, so from here somewhere we should get a good view of what's going on. Just turn the car around. There we go. So he's just on our right hand side. So there he is there, and then there's where the ellies are. And so the ellies sometimes can get a little bit feisty with lions, and we'll try and kind of chase them and push them off and try and get them to kind of be away, particularly if you've got young ones around. But it seems as though the male's kind of moving off slightly and the ellies don't seem to be too perturbed. You can see there's a little bit of kind of hesitation. Ears are out a little bit and flared, and her head is slightly raised. And so if you ever wanted to know the posture of an elephant when it's aware of something and is not exactly 100% happy, that is the kind of posture that they take, where they'll just lift their head slightly and kind of look around. Now, Michelle, you say he has a fantastic mane. He does have a beautiful mane. He's unfortunately hiding a little bit. He's just there at the moment. You can just see the back of his legs and his tail. I was hoping he was going to drift a little bit more to the sort of left and on the front side of those bushes, but, well, beggars can't be choosers sometimes with lions, and they do what they want. He's going to scent mark. Now, the problem is where we are is that I can't follow him where he's going at the moment. He's going to cross a lugger that's going to be impossible for me to get through, so I'm going to have to go around shortly, which we'll just watch him for a little bit longer, because he's going to cross sort of on the other side of the ellies at this stage. But isn't he beautiful? Buffalo in the background. How's that? So elephant, lion and buffalo all in the exact same place, which is what makes this area so spectacular. We often kind of talk about the sort of differences between Mara and Djuma, and this is one of the things that you get out here that is just so special, is that you constantly have multitude of animals that spend time together. It really is quite special that you're able to kind of see these kind of interactions between all these big animals and to see how they kind of get along. And you'll find now he's going to cross between the buffalo and the ellies, so it's absolutely awesome to see. How cool is this? What a way to start our morning. It doesn't get much better. So there you go, ellies in the foreground, lion in the middle and buffalo in the back. So that's a pretty epic way to start a working cycle up here in East Africa, I would say. I think it's absolutely wonderful. Ellies don't look too perturbed for now. Let's just see what they're going to do, because he's kind of crossing on the other side of the lugger. You can see that big female is not 100% happy about this lion that's walking through. She's still feeding, but her ears are definitely out and she's watching what's going on. There he's kind of drifting through. Now I think if we follow him, hopefully we might be able to find him joining up with maybe some of the others. So what I'm going to do is just go around the road, bend slightly. So we're just going to try and see if we can get around a little bit and get a better view of him. But it doesn't get much better than that, if you ask me. I am a happy camper for the start that we have had this morning. There's been like I say, ellies, buff and lions to start your morning is always a very good way to start the day. So Mara is spoiling us once again. I must say, it is really good to be back. So, Bob, what exactly is a lugger? Sorry, I should have explained that a little bit better. I forget sometimes that we've got to talk about these things. You know, these terms are used differently here than they are in South Africa. So for us, a lugger is basically a drainage line, what we refer to as a drainage line in South Africa. That's basically kind of what it is. Has he stopped now? I'm just trying to see if I can see where he is. So he's just on the sort of left side of that big tree at the moment, but it looks like he may have laid down there. I'm trying to see nicely the kind of way that the terrain works. It's a bit tricky to kind of see what's going on. So yeah, but basically those luggers are what we refer to as a drainage line in South Africa. Still looking around quite intently as to what's going on. I don't know if he's actually lying down or if he's just standing on the other side of that little ridge. See his contact calling? So you can hear every now and then. I don't know if we'd be able to hear it. It is very far away. So you can hear it very faintly. You might have also heard hyena calling in the distance as well. But he's definitely trying to talk to somebody. And when they make these sounds, these are basically there to try and kind of just attract the attention of whoever he's looking for, but not attract the attention of everybody. So this is not a big territorial vocalization that he's doing at the moment. This is all just to try and figure out where his coalition member or pride is that he would like to kind of join up with, and he's hoping that if he makes these small little contact calls, the other one will respond and they'll be able to come together. Or what's going to happen is he's going to start getting more and more frustrated, and eventually it gets louder and louder, and sometimes that will then lead to one of those territorial calls out of sheer frustration. But for now he seems to be fairly okay. You can see his ears will constantly move. He'll call and then he'll stop and his ears will twitch and turn, almost on a 180 sort of movement on both sides, and they'll try and figure out where the other one is. Now, it's interesting because he's almost done a full circle from when we first spotted him. We first spotted him coming sort of in a westerly direction towards the escarpment, and then he turned and come all the way back into a sort of southeasterly direction again. So I'm not sure if maybe the others are not too far away. I would imagine that given the way he's calling and the way that he's kind of looking about, is that the others might be just somewhere in the grass, that they might pop out, which will be nice if they do. But isn't he magnificent? There's something about East African lions that are incredibly beautiful. They are big, they often have much bigger manes than what we see down in South Africa, and that's generally because down in South Africa, the poor guys, their manes get pulled by all kinds of branches and thickets, and they've got to walk through a lot more scrub than what you see here. This grassy kind of landscape here makes it much better for these guys to be able to have these manes that don't get pulled too much and don't get kind of dragged, and the sort of hair gets taken out, and so you often find their manes here are a lot fuller and bigger, and the contrast of an open grassland with a big sort of maned lion is always absolutely beautiful. So it's a special thing, and funny enough, seeing this guy, it makes me miss somewhat the Birmingham boys. Now, I know the Evokers have been getting seen on Djuma every now and then, but the Birminghams, when we last sort of saw them, they were starting to develop manes like this, and it would have been nice if they had stuck around a little bit longer than what they actually did. But anyway, that's the way it goes. As male lions will move around, and it seems as though there's been actually quite a lot of movement here in the Mara. It's a tricky place to figure out what's going on when it comes to lions. Lions tend to distribute and move in kind of a lot more fluid ways than what we see down south in South Africa. In the Kruger system, you tend to find very, very structured territories, whereas here there's often a little bit more fluid movements to what goes on. And so it sounds like, I was talking to Adam last night, so for those of you who don't know who Adam is, he stays up at Ngama, and he basically lives out here, and spends a lot of his time out in the park. And so I was just chatting to him just to try and kind of catch up with what's been going on, and also haven't seen him since I was in the Congo with him, so we just kind of wanted to have a catch up. And he was telling me that there's been lots of nomadic males moving through, and it's been all a bit unsettled at this stage, which is quite interesting. So it's these are the ways things go with the Mara, and you're never quite sure where everybody actually is, and tend to find male lions in random places. Right, we're going to stay with our male lion. We're going to see if he's going to contact his way to the others, and while we do that though, let's send you back down south to some very tall, very lanky creatures.
A tall, lanky giraffe. There are actually quite a few of them. I'm going to move forward so we can see them. And they've just come out of the Northern Reserve. Just ease forward. The bush is getting much thicker now. Is that right? There we have it. 3 lady giraffe, 4 lady giraffe. Apparently, Giraffe Girl, you are tremendously excited to see a giraffe. Well, that's probably because you like giraffes, I suppose. I'm glad that you're happy to see them. I wanted to say something else about them, but I've now forgotten what that was. Oh, it wasn't about them. I can actually hear drums playing in the communities just outside this area. Somebody's had a very late night, clearly. It's a very unusual sound to hear at 5:39 in the morning. Jonathan, the proverbial how many species of giraffe are there in Africa? Well, there is some debate, Jonathan. But the best answer that we have is that there are 3 species of giraffe in Africa. The northern, the southern, which we're looking at here, and then the reticulated, which is its own species as far as I remember. Then there are a couple of different subspecies of each of those, totaling roughly 9, depending on who you talk to. The best place to check is giraffeconservation.org. They seem to have the most up-to-date information. And there are lots of course, of very, very endangered versions of the giraffe. No, Siri, shut up. Sorry, this telephone of mine thinks I'm asking questions about it, which I'm absolutely not. And so that website that I've just given you gives some really nice updates into what's going on, who's endangered and why, etc. So these are the southern giraffe, as I said. Giraffe, as far as I remember. I'm just going to quickly check that up for you because I can never remember it. Oh, no, hang on. Now we've got 4 species of giraffe. It's changed again. Can you believe it? Goodness. It's so difficult to understand what's going on. Right, we have the northern, yes, southern, reticulated, yes, and Maasai. Sorry, I was wrong. I do remember this. There are 4 different species of giraffe. Northern, southern, reticulated, and Maasai. The Maasai one is the one you see in Kenya, in the Masai Mara, and that is, of course, Giraffa tipple-sketchy. This one is Giraffa, and the subspecies of this one that we're looking at now is Giraffa. Alrighty, we're going to leave these giraffe heading into the bush. We've got Tristan with not only 1, but 2 of the iconic animals of the African plains now.
Exactly, not only 1, but 2 big animals. Isn't that a cool shot? James is doing sterling work. You can hear he's contact calling a little bit. And, well, the Ellie is feeding behind him. Now, it looks very odd because it looks like the Ellie and him are just kind of hanging out together. It's not quite actually the case. You'll find that when the lens is at a very long end like this, there's what's called compression. And so compression basically makes the background animal look as though it's right up against the foreground animal. So there's actually quite a big distance between the two of them. That's why nobody's really too perturbed by each other's presence. But it's absolutely cool to see an Ellie kind of feeding right behind a male lion. Isn't that awesome? I think that's very, very cool. So like I say, James has done a very good job. Now the Ellies are slowly feeding towards this male lion, so eventually he's going to get some motivation to get up. At this stage he's still quite a long way away, and you know, they'll be comfortable with the distance that they're at. But as soon as those Ellies kind of come through that little lugger or kind of get towards where he is, you'll find that we'll probably get a move on and he'll start to kind of move back towards where we are, which is absolutely perfect. We're on the right side of the sun now, which is also nice because the sun is just starting to come out. But it really is a beautiful scene. You can see the road in the background, so there's going to be a few vehicles that are going to join us fairly shortly. That's the guys that are just starting to come into the reserve and start to come out and kind of see what's going on. So they'll be with us. So there's a 3-shot of people coming to see our lion, as well as, well, an Ellie as well in the middle. Very, very cool. Now it's one of our cars that's actually coming past there. It's always a bit tricky from a long distance to see, but it's one of our vehicles that's kind of coming down. But I believe a lot of you are absolutely loving the shots, and so yes, if you are one that takes screenshots, this is as good as it gets in terms of being able to screenshot a lion and an elephant together. It's not every day that we get them like this, especially when it appears so close. And I'm hoping that the rest of the Ellies will follow suit and will also start to come through, because it'll be quite cool if we get the whole herd kind of around this male. I suppose I could go a little further forward and we could get the herd in amongst it, but it just works so well with where he's kind of lying and where that Ellie is. I think if we kind of go forward, we're going to get a bit of a bump between us and the lion, and it might make it a little bit more tricky. But this is not just the most scenically beautiful place. I know we often kind of talk about these things, but you know, Mara for me has got this ability to take your breath away just from a scenery point of view. Obviously we don't often get as close to the animals as what we would in Djuma, and there's obviously a very different kind of feel to both of them, but it's just from a scenery point of view, it has the ability just to make you kind of feel like you're in a completely different part of the world. Well, I suppose you are really, but it just makes you feel as though there's these big open spaces and there's something very wild about being in an open area like this. I suppose it's what we always remember when we're kids, you know, when we watch documentaries and things like that. Generally, it's the typical kind of open East African grassland scene that you get, and it's why, you know, you kind of think about that, and when you grow up, you always want to go and see those kind of areas, and I suppose that's the sort of connection to it and why it always seems to be that beautiful when you kind of get out here. But it really is, and when you think that we've got this kind of scene on our right, and then all the way along in the distance here is literally just hundreds of buffalo. So from the escarpment over there, you'll see a big herd. They stretch from there and then they come all the way down towards where we are here. So it's a monstrous herd of buffalo that we've got kind of milling about. I think those are buffalo. They look like buffalo. Yes, they are buffalo that are there. And then that comes down all the way and sweeps across to our left-hand side, which is what we saw just now when he was walking. That was kind of where he was going on. And so I would say that in this particular herd, there probably is at least, I would reckon, 400 to 500 buffalo that are in this particular section, and it's no wonder then that there is a lion in this area, because if you think about it, if there's the rest of the lions are around, I suppose it's a good place to be looking for food. And their diet is going to change now from having the bounty of the migration that stayed very late this year. I believe, in fact, there's even some members or parts of the herd that are down in the south at the moment. So from wildebeest, they're now going to have to start to change to things like buffalo and try and kind of, you know, feed off something different other than just the wildebeest. Now, he's still sitting at the moment, and Blu-ray, you want to know why do the females only hunt and the males don't do anything? Surely the males can. Well, that's a complete fallacy that the females only hunt. Males hunt incredibly well and do it quite regularly. They are vitally important, actually, a lot of the time, to be able to bring down big animals. So, you know, things like buffalo require a lot of the time the presence of a male lion, because he's got a lot more power and weight behind him, and that's able to then bring down these bigger animals. Wait, listen. Wasn't that just awesome? That's as good as it gets. Roaring male lion, Ellie's in the background. How epic was that? There we go. And he kind of is going to ghost past the rest of the herd. That was so cool. What a way to start in the Mara. Right, now while our male moves on, it sounds like James Henry has got one of my favorite cats who's also mobile at the moment.
I think what we've got here is Hosanna, everybody. We've just got him. Unfortunately, he's crossed the boundary. So we cannot follow him. Is it? Goodness gracious, I think it is. I'm just a little reticent to say definitely, because there's quite a lot of territorial spraying going on. No, man, that's Tingana. That's not Hosanna. Look how big his dewlap is. He's disappearing now. Yeah, Michelle, you said it looks like Tingana. I'm pretty sure that's who it was. He's just, you know what? Chris Rose says what? 1,000% Hosanna. He's in the very thick bush. My doubt is created by, of course, that sort of territorial marking, but we do know that Hosanna's been doing that for some time now. Anyway, I can just see spots now. Yes, as Kirsten says, what we can be sure about, it is most certainly a leopard, a male leopard. Yeah. Yeah, I think the general consensus is that it is Hosana. He's also that little dewlap of his is getting substantially larger. Why are you going in there? Come back. I wonder if his enthusiasm for Buffelshoek has now been caused by the fact that Tingana has chased Gijima. Now, Gijima is the territorial male of this area. In theory, it was kind of the boundary between Tingana and Gijima. And Tingana is just pushed further and further north. And I wonder if the fact that Gijima is perhaps not being smelled here anymore means Hosana thinks, well, I can just smell Dad. I'll wander in here and see what's going on. Very interesting. Anyway, it was a nice sighting of one of our leopards. Stations, I've lost view of this animal. He is mobile straight north towards Tambuti Dam. I'll be leaving the area. It's a pity that he's decided to do that. No, very unlike him. Yes, Mary J. Apparently James Richard says it's definitely ho-ho. I guarantee you he didn't say this is ho-ho. My initial reaction when I saw him was Hosana. And then that fat dewlap in the bushes just made me doubt myself, but I'm pretty sure you're all right. And the male lion has also gone north over here. That is very inconvenient of him to have done that. Right, well, we still hopefully have Tingana on the reserve. So while we look to him, let us hope, I don't know, sorry, we're going to go to Brent. I've completely missed what the link is that he's looking at.
Well, we're looking for Tingana. His last tracks come into the block here, and we're just trying to double check where he's gone. So Herbie's been checking behind Craig, I've been checking on the road here. We haven't got any tracks coming out yet, so we're really hoping he might be in this little river system up ahead here. So when I heard James has Hosana, no Tingana, I was like, ooh, hope it's not Tingana, because then we've been tracking for about 3 kilometers on tracks that are leaving, but they haven't left yet. We're quite confident he has not left the property. We've checked the southern boundary now, so the last tracks are probably about 300-400 meters from here in that general direction, and we're going to slowly move our way towards there to see if he has crossed the Mawati River, or if he's maybe found or caught something overnight in these thickets here. It's a really good hunting area, so it's very possible he could still be in here. And of course, when you're tracking Tingana, you've got to go very quietly, because he doesn't like being found on foot, and he tends to skedaddle when we do find him on foot. So slowly, slowly, that's how we're doing it. Where's Herbie disappearing off to? What has Herbie seen down in the Mawati River? Okay, we're going to keep focusing on figuring out exactly what's going on with Tingana. I'll have a quick chat to Herbie while I do that. It seems like Trist's lion is on the move.
Well, enjoy figuring that out. We've, as you can see, are sitting with Giraffe, not because we came to these guys, because our male lion is slowly kind of drifting behind them at the moment. We were hoping that he would come a little closer, that we could kind of get a better two-shot. You can just see him ghosting through now. Justin, who's out of Skari this morning, it's very good to see him because I haven't seen Justin in a while, and Justin's one of the best guys out here. I thoroughly enjoy when he's with us. He's always got a good sense of humour, and he's very, very good at seeing things. In fact, he spotted our lion this morning, so we owe Justin a round of applause. And he says that in front of us somewhere, which is where this male lion is heading, there was 2 buffalo carcasses that were killed by, sounds like, the Mara River Pride. And so that's maybe where this male lion is walking to at the moment. He let out that big roar, and maybe he heard something, and that's why he's heading that way. You can see the giraffe, they're staring, and they'll actually follow him a little bit. You can see how that one there is just following, just so that they can keep him in view, make sure that he's not up to any sort of no good, and not trying to kind of come and get a little bit closer and try and hunt them. So you'll often find giraffe, when they spot a lion, will start to move a little bit closer, and they'll watch and they'll look and they'll try and see where's this guy going, and they know that there's a certain distance between them and him that they'll be able to outrun him, and so that's why they'll keep that kind of distance, but they'll move just so that they can keep seeing him. And it's amazing watching them because they all kind of stop and they stare in that direction, and everybody watches as he goes. And I've just seen him kind of go down into a big deep lugger there, and he should come out onto the other side, and we're going to just try and go around and see if we can find where these kind of carcasses are. So he's gone somewhere in that direction. James, can you see him? Yes, there he is, there, just behind the tree. So he's just crossing that way. So I'm going to try and get round, and let's see if maybe he's going to head towards those carcasses, and the rest of the pride might be there, or maybe, like I say, one of his coalition members as well. It's going to take a bit of time. Oh, Keto, don't squeak. To get all the way around, but we shall do so. There's quite a few Ellies in between us and them as well. Richard, of course we're going to look for leopards in the Mara. That is why we're here, is we're going to debunk the myth that the Mara has very few leopards. We're going to try and find as many as we can, so we will be looking around for them for sure. They are, as you all know, my favorites, and so we'll hopefully find some. The problem is a lot of the leopard activity when I was here last is in areas that we have quite poor signal. But we'll figure it out. We'll make a plan, actually, somehow, some way. Where we're going now, this section along the Mara River, there's a big male leopard that lives along here that is often seen, so got to keep his eye out for him. It's not the shepherd tree male, which some of you might know. It's another male that often gets seen, funnily enough, by the hot air balloon. As the balloon goes along the river, he pokes his head out the top of the trees, and you can see him from above, which is quite cool. But we'll definitely be looking around. There's a few spots that I want to go and check where we had some leopard luck last time I was here, and we'll try and definitely find some spotty cats of our own and get them on camera, because they, as you know, are my favorites, and I really want to try and see if we can find as many as possible while we're here. It's always nice to see them. The thing about leopards here, what I found, is that a lot of them are quite shy, so when you do find them, not many of the sightings last as long as what we see in Djuma. So in Djuma we obviously kind of have these extended periods of these very relaxed animals, and we don't regularly kind of see that up here in the Mara. The other thing is that a lot of the time these leopards are quite sneaky in this area. They sit in places where it's very, very tricky to actually see them. They go right up into the tops of the trees, and they hide out in amongst the foliage there. And so you'll like scan a tree and you'll think, oh, that's such a nice leopard tree, there's this beautiful open branch, but actually they're up above it, in the top of it, trying to kind of hide out and make sure that they're not too visible. So, you know, you've got to kind of look quite carefully for them. But luckily, the combination that I've got on the car here, I've got James on the vehicle, and James is the best leopard luck. Whenever I was with James, we saw leopards. How many leopards did we see, James? We saw a few, eh? 5, James reckons, is what I saw with him when I was here last. So James is always good leopard luck. So hopefully we will get some luck and be able to find a spotty cat. I suppose we've also got cheetah that we can look for as well, which will be quite nice. It's been a while since I've seen one of those. In fact, the last time I saw a cheetah was the day I left the Mara when I was with Kikenya. So it'll be nice to catch up with them. Hello, Ellies. How are you guys? Is that another lion over there, James? Yes, there's another lion over there coming our way. So between all the between all the ellies is another lion coming our way. It's walking just through the grass there. You can just see it on the left of the frame. So that is a different male that is walking in this direction. So there we go. We're going to see a reunion, I think, of the two boys coming together. The other male's quite far on our right-hand side between all of the ellies, and so they'll have to come together at some point. But Craig, you say the leopards will look for us? Well, I hope so. It would be very nice if the leopards do look for us and that we find lots of them. I would thoroughly enjoy if we had leopards finding us regularly. I can actually see the other male now. He's very, very far in the distance, and the two of them are actually going to bypass each other unless one of them starts to call, because this male is heading straight towards us. The other male is going bypassing him in a parallel sort of direction. He's about, I would say, maybe about 500 meters, 600 meters to the west of where this male that we're looking at currently is. Very cool, though. There's quite something about the scene that we're in. There must be easily 50, 60 elephants, maybe even more, maybe even 100. 2 male lions, about 500 buffalo, and a whole bunch of giraffes as well. So just being absolutely spoiled this morning, that's for sure. And like I say, you don't get much more picturesque than what we've been seeing during the course of our morning. So there goes our male. He's walking there. I'm trying to just keep an eye on the other male to see what he does. He's still kind of drifting in the opposite direction. They'll eventually figure it out, the two of them. I'm sure they'll spot one another, and if they do, then they're going to come together, and it'll be really nice if we see the two of them joining. Often it's really quite kind of interesting to see male lions when they join one another. They'll kind of head bump and they'll rub up against each other. Of course, if it's not coalition members, then it can be a little bit of a fight that might ensue, which is also quite interesting to watch. So we'll just see how it plays out. I'm not that familiar with the Kichwa boys. When we spent time down here, well, when I was here last, I spent almost 0 time where we are right now. In fact, the only time I actually drove where we are right now is my very, very, very first game drive. We had the Mara River Lions. They actually killed a warthog right where we're sitting right now, and that was the only time I ever drove here. It then became a mess to drive here because there was far too much rain, and so didn't come into this area at all. And so it's quite nice actually to spend some time here and to see a dry Mara. To be honest, the roads are infinitely better than when I was last year, and it is very pleasant. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Almost looks like they're about to have an accident and kind of crash into each other. That's awesome. It's not every day that you're going to get lions and ellies kind of walking around each other as much as what we've had this morning. And you can see he'll probably veer off. The male lion, even though everyone always calls them the king of the jungle. And you'll see there that they're actually not. You'll find elephants boss what goes on out here. They're the ones that move them off. Now, our beard, you say that this is the one that it's slack jaw. Is that what you said, Kirsty? I didn't hear very well, I must be honest, but it seems as though it is that one. You can see his lip hangs quite heavily. It does look as though he has a bit of a slack jaw. He's got a kind of, almost looks like a swollen bottom lip. I think he's been drinking, and so that's making it appear a lot darker than it actually is. But he's in magnificent condition wherever he is. He's in a really, really beautiful example of a male lion, that's for sure. Got a nice round tummy as well. Now the other male should drift pretty much behind him, but a long way in the distance. So where these ellies are, and a little bit maybe more towards the right of this male, is where the other one was walking. So I'm pretty sure that they've completely bypassed one another without actually knowing, which is, I suppose, not ideal if they are trying to look for one another. Isn't that cool there? You can see he's kind of just walking straight at us at the moment. So all he did was just do a little bypass of the ellies, and now he's going to get back towards the road, where much more comfortable to walk than walking through long grass. He doesn't have to worry about bits of grass hitting him in the face and in the eyes and up his nose and tickling his ears. If he walks on the road, it becomes a lot easier for him to move around. How cool is this? We're being spoilt this morning. So there's where the other male is somewhere in the background behind him there. That's the last time I saw him, was where those ellies are, walking through that direction, but going the complete opposite way to where this guy is moving at the moment. Very, very cool. Now he's going to go past us, and so I'm going to try and just turn around quickly so that we can just kind of keep up with him and see what happens. just lost the other one now. I can't see where he's gone. Like I said, the last time I saw the other one was somewhere on my right-hand side, but I can't see him. Oh, there he is. He's far in the distance. You see him, James? I'll try and show you roughly where he is before I turn around, but these ellies here to the left of them. So, oh, there, the other one's calling now, so that one should get his attention. Can you hear it? So somewhere there's where the other one is. Now let's see if the other one responds. So somewhere in that mix of ellies is where the other one is. I saw him roughly where James is now. That bush was the last time I saw him, but he's just called, so I would be very surprised if that male didn't respond or turn and come in this direction, unless of course, like I say, they are not related or not coalition partners. Then of course it's going to be a little bit different. No, I don't see him. Alright, while I turn, I'll keep an eye out there and see if he's changing direction. It's going to be a bit tricky for this lion because he's gotten himself right into the middle of a herd of ellies, and so turning and trying to get back in this direction is going to be a bit tricky. I still don't see him. So, Lara, I've got to agree with you. A lion roar is quite something. I will say one thing though, it's quite interesting, is that listening to lions roar in this part of the world, it's often a lot quieter than what you hear in Djuma, and it's probably because it's so much more open here that the sound just kind of dissipates that much quicker, whereas in Djuma, with everything being quite closed in, often the sound sort of resonates around you and almost as if it gets kind of held in a little bit, and you often feel like it's a lot louder than when you hear them here. But it is the most epic call. Last night, when I went to bed, which was much needed after a rather long journey to get here, we had lions roaring all around the camp, and we had hyenas calling and zebras, and it's always the best sound to fall asleep to. Now we're going to go along with this male for now. Oh no, wait, there comes the other one. So I can see the other one now. He's coming along. Can you see him there, James? So he's moving this way as well. He's just next to an elephant, so he's walking in this direction. He's following the sound now of this other male, which is very cool. So there's no ways that that lion could not have heard this guy call. So I'm surprised though that he didn't call back and that the two of them then could join, because if he called, it would stop that male in his tracks and they would then be able to kind of wait for one another. But there you'll see him. He's going to come through all of those ellies that we saw just now. Isn't this amazing? This is very cool. Trish, to be honest, I don't know, and I'll tell you why. Is because, as I was explaining earlier, I have spent very, very, very little time in this particular section, and so I don't know whether or not this is his coalition member. I know that there are two Kichwa males, and that they do spend time around one another, so I don't know if that other one is the Kichwa male. Maybe some of you will know a little bit better. I know quite a few people that follow the lions of the Mara a lot and know them very, very well. And so I'm not sure if they're coalition members. If they're not coalition members, then, well, there could very well be a fight. You could find that they'll shout at each other. But the way that this guy has turned, it doesn't seem to be salivating or trotting. If this was an intruder situation and there was two male lions that were going to fight, what you would find is that there would be a lot more vocalizing. So they would be trying to impress each other and trying to kind of push each other away using sound. There'd also be salivating, and there'd be a lot more urgency in the way that they approach the situation. You'd find this male would come trotting in, he'd be vocal, he'd try and impose himself over this individual and try and really kind of show force towards him, whereas what we're seeing here is him kind of just ambling along. He doesn't seem to be too perturbed, he's not salivating, and that male most definitely can see the other male. There's no ways that they can't see, or that he can't see it. The sort of angle that he's walking in behind this individual, and so you should be able to see him. You'll see that he's just here in front, kind of walking in that direction. Now it looks like a very long way, but it's actually not as far as you think. So there he goes. He's just kind of still got his head down, sniffing. So that's the direction that we came from. So that's kind of the area where we started, or earlier where we were looking at the giraffe. That's where it is. Now, some of you suggesting that maybe this is Blondie from the Kichwa Coalition, so that would make sense then. They would then know one another. But what's interesting is the male that we first saw, who's on our left, he's now currently just stopped, just watching this other male slowly amble along. He hasn't carried on walking, which is surprising. I thought he might do so, but he's stopped and he's just kind of watching and looking. He's a long way off from us at the moment, and just want to stay where we are. No, he's going to keep coming, which is good news. Hopefully what we're going to see is the one that the sort of blonder of the two with the lip is going to lie down, and then this guy will be able to catch up and we'll actually be able to confirm whether or not they are. But I have a funny feeling that they are coalition partners. There doesn't seem to be too much in the way of aggression there. But again, Ellie's all over the place in the background. How epic. What a wonderful way to spend our morning. We've been spoilt and we haven't even gotten very far at all. We've done about, I would say, probably not even 5 kilometers from the camp, really. It's all been very easy this morning, which is wonderful, really. It's a nice way to kind of ease back into things and be able to kind of shake the cobwebs a little bit and be able to leave brain out quite quickly and to be able to sort of settle in nicely. It's always tricky when you start your kind of cycle with a quiet drive and you've got to get yourself back into things quite quickly. It takes a little bit of time, and so when you've got a bit of sort of action with animals moving around, it always helps a little bit. Now our male is going to have to do a little bit of a detour because he's on a crash course for some more elephants, so I'm sure he'll come a little bit closer to where we are and kind of then get onto the road and hopefully then towards that other male, and we'll see them kind of join up. But while we wait and while we see how long it's going to take him to get there, let's send you back across to Brent, who is doing much like this male and is searching for another male.
Yes, well, we're still on Tingana's tracks, and we've been on them for about 4 kilometers now, and because of the nature of the bush here, we're being much quieter. So the last tracks we had were about 30 meters behind. Its general direction has been northeast, but this is quite thick country, and we know he was hungry last night when I left him. So we're just going very, very carefully in case he's caught something. We don't want to give him too big a fright, so we're going quietly and carefully. Let's go have a look at these paths over here. We just want to make sure he hasn't changed direction and headed more to the north. The ground's very hard, so we're going very slowly for 2 reasons. Because the tracking is difficult, and because we know how nervous or not nervous, but how Tingana really doesn't like being found on foot. So it's a really nice challenge, this. I'm not seeing... See, there. Now, when I say the tracking is hard, I mean it's very hard. So, that is a leopard track. Then the toes are up here. And then here's the pad. So, say it's very, very difficult tracking at the moment, which means we're going very slowly. But we're still on the tracks, and of course, every minute we get closer to possibly finding him. Keeping our ears open, see if there's any alarm calls from squirrels, even little birds like cisticulus. Yeah, so I'm going to concentrate on following these ever so slight impressions in the sand. While we do that, let's go see what James is up to and where he is.
We did have some reports of the Nkuhuma Pride where we are now, but I cannot see any sign of the Nkuhuma Pride. Not the actual animals, not their tracks, not their dung, not their smell even. So I'm not sure what's become of them or why they were said to be here. I'm going to turn around and maybe we'll head down to Chitwa. We're not far from there. And see if we don't pick something up that side. We are just on Torchwood now, which is the reserve to the east of us. Or the reserve to the east of Djuma, should I say. Hello, nature girl. We don't find albino animals very often at all. We find some animals, elephants in particular, that have sort of partial albinism, but not full albinism. Full albinism is very unusual and often results in death, because animals with albinism, of course, do not survive the strong African sun. You do get leucistic animals, which are paler than most. They just got slightly less pigment than normal, and they tend to do all right out here, except of course they find it slightly more difficult to hide. But albinism is really not common out here at all. In fact, I think other than an elephant, I'm not sure that I've ever seen an albino wild animal. I think what else. I mean, the best thing to do, if you want to understand the different colors of animals and how they work, the best thing to do is to go and find a city park somewhere and look at the pigeons. You get black ones, which are melanistic. You get pale ones, which are leucistic. You get red ones, and I forget what the word for red ones is, but basically a red form. And you get all the varieties in between. And all of those can possibly occur with the animals out here. So I've seen leucistic francolins and melanistic francolins. We get leucistic leopards and melanistic leopards. We get leucistic human beings like this. This is a leucistic human being. And we get melanistic human beings. Black people are melanistic human beings. So you get them in all different species. I've got different color morphs, if you like. No, there is no sign of any lion here, except in this quarry where clearly there was a lion and it ate a buffalo. But alas, it is gone now. There's no audible sign either. I think Sebastian's idea of popping down to the waterhole at Chitwa is a good one. It's not far from here. Alright, let's just pop down there. It's not far. Apparently Hosanna has come back onto Djuma, but he may well turn around and go back north again, so I'm going to give them a little bit of time to follow him, those that can traverse on Djuma. Richard, white lion cubs are leucistic lions. They're not albino, they're leucistic. So, as I was mentioning, leucism is just a lesser pigment. It's not without pigment. Albinism means absolutely no pigment. And you get those red eyes, white hair, white skin, very pale white skin. Like a white rat, yes, like a white rat. Or a truly white horse is an albino horse. But normally you find them in domestic animals because otherwise they tend not to survive. Albino humans survive quite well because, of course, they live in sheltered environments often. But it is the condition of absolutely zero pigment whatsoever. Just looking down towards the dam, looking for some tracks, seeing any. Very odd. Alright, well, Tristan's already got some lions, so I think let's go back up to him in the Masai Mara and the beauty of the plains and the lions and the elephants and the buffalo and the grass.
We've been spoilt this morning with both male lions, and this poor boy is still trying to catch up with the blonde-maned individual, so he's now walked all the way back from where he first started, and you're going to see fairly shortly that as he goes along, he's going to disrupt a whole bunch of giraffe that are up ahead of him, the same ones that we were with just now when he walked through here. So he's having to backtrack himself, and that's because the other male is headed exactly where he called from. So when he first roared earlier, when we saw it, is exactly where that other male is headed, and they're probably now are a bit confused as to why everybody keeps moving around, and sometimes wonder about male lions. If he had just called just now, the other one would have stopped for sure, but there you go, the giraffe in the background and the epic Uluru escarpment as well. It's quite a backdrop for a male lion and a giraffe kind of to stare at. It really is very pretty. So Kenneth, I would imagine yes. So, and the reason why I say this is because you'll often see with male lions, or in my experience, I've spent a lot of time with male lions in the Sabi Sands, and you'll find when one of their coalition members roar, they will perk their ears up, but they don't really seem too concerned about it. Sometimes they'll just flop back down, sometimes they'll get up and slowly walk in that direction. It just depends. Whereas if another male lion roars, then you'll find that these guys get really quite sort of irritable, and they'll then perk their head up and they'll be much more focused with what's going on. So it depends. I mean, there must be an element of them being able to identify different vocal sounds. Their hearing is impeccable in comparison to us, and if we can recognize different voices and tell the difference between them, I am 100% sure that lions can do the same. And so they will be able to pick each other up and know where each other is. It's why they'll often know whether there's a threat in their territory or whether or not it's something they need to worry about. And so you'll find that, and they're able to determine that often just from the sound that they're hearing. They'll also be able to determine whether it's male or female, and that's probably due to the loudness as well as the sort of bass within that sound. And so, you know, they're able to kind of figure it out. Now, I'm hoping that the other male is stopped because there's two vehicles with us. I think there's a parrot. Oh, hello. Brown-headed parrot that just flew past. Sorry, there's a bit of squirrel syndrome that I had there. I just haven't seen a parrot here for quite some time, so it was nice to see, a little bit of colour in the morning as well. Right, now we're going to try and just figure out where the other male is, because I'd like to be in a good position to be able to watch them come together. There's obviously a few other cars that are in the area too. There's the other male. He's not far ahead at all. He's quite close, in fact. He's where the second car is. So there's over there is where the other one is, and then obviously this guy is in this direction here. So we should be able to see them all come together, which will be nice. And it's amazing how accurate a male lion's sense of hearing is, because I'm pretty sure the one in front has come in this direction because of the roar that we heard earlier, and he is walking directly to where we heard that roar. That roar was right there in that little open clearing, and now we've got that male in front. You see where he is? It's exactly where that male roared from, and now he's stopped and he's looking around, and you can see the two of them kind of going towards one another. But isn't that incredible that their ability from all that way away to pinpoint exactly where that roar has come from? He is pretty much in the exact place where it came from. It's amazing. It astounds me how sensitive their hearing can be. Right, what I'm going to do though is I want to just catch up a little bit, because I want to see the two of them come together, and I don't want to be too far behind, so I just want to quickly go around and be able to be where the other male is. So we're going to just try and shoot around these guys. Giraffe must be hating this morning. They've got lions just walking through them all the time. Becky, you're asking what could those spots be on the side of the lion? Could be scarring that's now healed. That's probably what it is. I'll have a look now. I, to be honest, didn't notice them, but I would imagine maybe scarring that could potentially have now healed up and be able to kind of left these little sort of markings on his side. I'm just looking now as we're going, just to try and see. Now he's on the road, which doesn't help us, because I was just hoping that we could get round him. The other male is right here, so we should get the two of them coming together fairly shortly. Just going to go forward a little bit. And they do look like scars on this side of his body. Obviously, male lions, or lions in general, actually do have spots, so they will be able to sometimes show. There we go. Now they've seen each other. See now, you can see the reaction to one another is completely that of relaxed males. They're not intruders at all, so they're going to come together. This is going to be an awesome moment. Watch this. See, they're going to come together. There'll be lots of head rubbing. They might even roll around on top of one another and collapse in a pile. Oh, now the one's decided a bush is better to rub on. Okay, now let's see if he turns when the other one gets to him. There we go. So look at that. Now, like I said, they'll lie next to each other and check. They'll roll on top of each other, and there'll be a bit of cuddling, and this is all just bonding that they're doing. Isn't this cool? Look at that. And a bit of biting of one another as well. That's so cool. So basically all this is the softer side of a male lion. When they are in coalitions, this is how they bond with one another, and you'll find that they'll rub up against each other, they'll just reaffirm the bond that they have, and then they'll kind of be able to lie down. Now, Paradise Girl, will they groom each other? Probably. Often do when they come together. You'll find that, oh, that one is absolutely loving marking that bush. But you'll find that they'll lie next to one another and they'll groom and they'll try and kind of be part of that bonding process. So often male lions do that, and it's not for long. You'll find that it doesn't happen for a long period. It's not like the females, but they will do a little bit of grooming, and you'll find they'll kind of lick each other's manes a little bit, but it's not a long process, whereas females, you often find, will do it for a much longer period. But all that marking on the tree as well is them just doing a bit of scenting as well, and just kind of rolling around and making sure that their scent is all over the place, that if anybody else comes into this area. There's also, you can see every now and then just rubbing up on each other too. It's always this nice when you get the softer side of big male lions and able to kind of see these sort of more intimate moments, is probably the best word for it. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move slightly forward. No, wait, there's another car that's going to position itself between us and the line, so we'll just stay where we are for now. But you'll see that they'll still kind of be rubbing up, and eventually you'll find that they'll settle down and lie next to one another. I'm pretty sure what we're going to see is that they're going to mark on this bush a little bit, and because of the amount that they've walked, and now that the sun's coming out, it's definitely starting to get a lot warmer now, that we're going to see the two of them kind of resting. Now, that can't be comfortable. The one just lay on top of a tree on top of the other one, and you imagine sticks poking you in the head can't be very pleasant at all. This is very cool. Well worth waiting for and following them along. Now, can you hear there's a little bit of sort of growling and grumbling as they interact with one another. It would be nice if the two of them just together let out a roar just to announce themselves, and then I'd imagine we're going to start to see them starting to settle down and have a little bit of a sleep. I doubt they're going to move too much more than what they have this morning. They've gone a long, long way. One thing about Mara is that you often find that the lions do walk even during the middle of the day. Even these big males, sometimes you'll find at 12 o'clock when it's hot, them just kind of striding around. It's very different to the sands in many respects, and that's in Djuma. You'll often find where you leave the lions in the morning, in the afternoon they're pretty much still there. But this poor bush is being absolutely battered by these two. It's being pulled and pushed and prodded and rubbed on, and it's not going to look the same by the time these two are finished. Isn't there a saying about lions in a bush? They do love this bush, don't they? They almost love the bush more than they love each other at this stage. But like I say, the bush is not going to be loving the male lion's work on it, because it's getting absolutely thumped by these two. They're squashing all the branches and kind of pulling it, although it seems as though the bush doesn't really sustain too much damage. I suppose better than being fed on by, let's say, something like an elephant. Beautiful boys though, aren't they? They are in very good condition, both of them. Both are looking happy and healthy and well fed, which is really good news. So I wonder if this other male, before we got here, heard that second male. Now listen. Can you hear them? It might be a bit tricky, but there's a low little grumbling that's coming from them as they're rubbing up on each other. This is awesome. I believe you'll also hear another vehicle. The other vehicle should turn off shortly, and then it should be a lot quieter for us. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go forward a little bit now that they've got their head behind the bush. I'm going to just try and see if I can get us into a slightly better spot where we can actually just see both of their heads. Alright, there we go. That will be a little bit better. I think it's a slightly better angle than what we originally had. There'll also be quite a few cars that will start to kind of come through now, and we'll start to see, I think, a lot more people coming. So we might decide to carry on just now, especially if the two boys decide to go to sleep. We'll spend a bit of time with them just to see what they actually do, but it looks as though both are kind of positioning themselves into a place where they'll get a little bit of shade. Not that that is the shadiest bush that there ever is, especially after it's been destroyed by these two rolling around in it, but At least there's a little bit of shade there, and you'll find that they'll often use these kind of areas for shade. And then close by we've got some big trees that we can use as well, so they'll then get up, and as the sun moves, so they will move and try and find themselves a little spot to rest. But wasn't that cool? There we go. See, so he's going to go behind that bush, and that's the two of them. I don't think we're going to see too much more movement from either of them. I'm pretty sure they'll start to groom a little bit and start to kind of just get all the bits of hair that have sort of become loose from walking, and then you'll find that they're going to have a good nap for the day. I suppose they've walked quite far, particularly the one. He's gone a long way and had to come all the way back again, so I'm pretty sure that the two of them are not going to spend too much time awake now. They're going to start going to sleep. So what we'll probably do is carry on and go and see what else we can find and see what else is out and about, particularly because there's quite a few vehicles here. We're going to leave all of them to eat and to enjoy, and so while we do that, let's send you back across to Brent Leo Smith, who's still on the hunt for Tingana.
Well, we've lost the tracks at the moment, somewhere in this horrible thickness and hard ground between Mumba Road and Ledwood Road. So we're going to roll the dice, so to speak. We're going to check up towards Drakensberg Road, see if we can pick up the tracks in a slightly better area for tracking. And as we move further to the east, there's always a chance we might find Thandi and Tlalambo's tracks, although I do suspect they're deeper inside Torchwood. I heard some ellies off that way, so if we get no luck there, we'll see if we can go sneak upon some heffalumps. Jonathan is asking, have I been to the Americas and seen jaguars? Not yet, Jonathan, but it is on my list of things to do. Who knows, maybe I'll be there next year. Hopefully. But yes, I know tigers and jaguars are quite high up on my list of things to go see. And snow leopards. And of course, if I'm going to the Americas... Oh, Herbie, have we caught him again? That's not Thandi. Now, as I said, we're dealing with some very difficult tracking this morning. What we're looking at is that, but I'm not sure. What do you think, Herb? Yeah, I think this could be Thandi. Too small for Tingana. Again, we're dealing with such difficult tracks at the moment after the rain that's hardened the ground, that something that would take us an hour to track before it rained will now take us 2 hours, 3 hours. We've got to go so carefully, as you can see. I mean, that's barely a track, and if we weren't on foot, we wouldn't even see that. We would not see it at all if we were driving in the vehicle. Well, it seems like everyone else is having the luck this morning, but we're still on the mission for spots. No one else has found spots yet, but James has found some tawny.
I have found tawny, and I did find spots earlier, and unfortunately these lions were being quite cute actually before you got to us, and then as they heard that you were going to come to us, they went flat completely. So I think the one at the back there is Amber Eyes, but I might be wrong. She opened her eyes very briefly and we had a look-see, but I could be wrong. But don't worry, because she's not the only one. They are not the only ones here. The rest of the pride also is here. So let us move a little bit forward to see if we can see them. There they are. And there's also another one calling from just inside Torchwood, which is to our north. Get up. They, of course, don't believe in work on Sundays, which is perfectly valid in my opinion. I think we have some mangy Monganis. 3 mangy Monganis, or just 2. Is that a lioness there? I think it's a lioness. Here are 2 mangy Mungan male lions. Now, for those of you who don't know, they come from a pride that is basically on the Sand River near Londolozi, and they were tossed out there, probably by the Birmingham boys, and they came up here and tried to join the Nguhumas, looking for some protection, and, well, they had dreadful, dreadful mange. But this seems to be healing, and I think they're starting to look much, much better. Probably just over 2 years old. Very vulnerable, difficult time of life for a male lion. There's just some soft calling coming from north of us. And I can tell you also, if you look at the one on the ground, look behind his elbow. His elbow there's got that typical kind of swelling of tuberculosis. We think that's what it is anyway. And for many, many years people thought the lions of the Kruger were all going to die because everyone had bovine tuberculosis from the buffalo. But much like with human tuberculosis, many people are carriers, but the disease doesn't express unless there's some kind of compromised immune system, like so many of these diseases. And obviously this Mangean male has had a severely compromised immune system because he's been experiencing a huge amount of stress, having been kicked out of the pride, and he would have been hungry quite a lot of the time, wouldn't have had enough to eat. That's how the mange took hold, and so he's also expressing some effects of the bovine tuberculosis. He doesn't look in a great way, I must say. If you look at his backside, his hips are showing, but at least his mange is a little bit better. Chitty chatty Meg, yes, it is dangerous for a lion to get TB. It's not the best thing in the world. We think maybe it knocks a year or so of their lives off. We're not actually sure, though. Like I say, when I started guiding in the year 2000, which was, of course, in the dim mists of historical time, I was told that there was really dreadful fear for the lions of the Kruger. We had one of the top lion researchers, remains one of the top lion researchers in the Kruger area, coming in to talk to us and saying, listen, we really have got a problem here. We could lose 70% of the Kruger lions in the next 10 years. And there was great dire warnings of prides getting smaller and anecdotal evidence of them being decimated, wandering, ill, emaciated nomads all over the place. Turns out to have been a bit of a false alarm. Nobody really knew, so it wasn't based on science, it was predictive. And so, while I've no doubt that does affect an immune-compromised animal, without the immune-compromised, immune system being compromised, I think it actually doesn't make a big difference. I'm just going to call these in. Otherwise, nobody will know that they're here. Stations we have also located in Nguhuma Pride. They are at the junction of the Chitwa driveway, just east of that position, on the fire break to Torchwood. There we go, I've done my duty. It's an interesting question, Crafty Stash, but no, I don't think it will. I don't think the mane will not grow because of the mange unless they scratch so much on the back of their heads that those hair follicles from which the mane should erupt are in some way damaged. Because that's what the mite does. It burrows into the hair follicles and inflames them and makes them so dreadfully itchy. Poor little fellows. Now remember, the third one joined them a little while back. I don't know where he is. We're also not really sure why it is that the Nkuhuma pride is not moving as a unit. And I suspect quite strongly it has to do with the arrival of that Avoca male. I think that they are still a bit nervous of him, especially the males. Excuse the ruffling, I had to scratch my head. And so what I think you'll find is that the Talamati male and possibly the young Nkuhuma male are avoiding being around the big Avoca. There are some Impala now alarm calling at the lions. The lions couldn't care less. Poor little fellow. I keep thinking I'm hearing lions behind me, but it is in fact Sebastian's stomach that is clearly quite peckish on this Sunday morning. All right, let's go back across to Tristan. He's got yet more animals for you. I'm going to see if I can't perhaps go up into Torchwood and find the rest of this pride that we heard calling.
Well, indeed. We haven't driven very far. I just like to spend time with Ellies. It's, obviously one of those things that many of you will know. If I'm not with leopards, then I like to be with Ellies back home in Djuma. So I thought, well, why not just spend time with all the Ellies that are around us? And there are so many that are here. They literally, as far as you can see, is just elephant wall to wall at the moment. And it's nice because generally a lot of them are quite close. And so often, in Mara, we talk about how the animals are a little bit further away. And at least this morning, we've been fortunate in that everything has kind of been very, very close to us. And the nice thing about spending time with the Mara Ellies is that they look a little bit different to the ones that we see. The tusks on the females are seriously impressive. We obviously see a lot of females down in Djuma that have got much shorter, thicker tusks, but down here they get these long, kind of straight tusks. They really are beautiful examples of Ellies when you kind of get to see them. And it reminds me a lot of if you go to Savo in Kenya, they also have a lot of Ellies that have got tusks like this, which are very, very long and straight. And you can see there's a little bit of gamesmanship happening between the boys. Always good to see these guys kind of moving around. What's that in the background there as well? Another Ellie. Yes, there's more Ellies in the background. So this is a swamp area actually, and we were just discussing it now. I was just talking to James and Justin about it, and we were discussing how this was just water when I was here last time, and you couldn't actually drive in any of these areas. And so this swamp area is a great place to look for not only the Ellies, but also for things like black rhino. You'll find them here as well, moving about in this section, which would also be very nice. Been a while since I've been able to show rhinos on screen, so I would thoroughly enjoy that. Now I'm just going to quickly get out of the way of the guys that are coming this side so that they can get past us, or are they going to go around us? I think they're going to go round. They're going to go around. That's nice. So, Ivan, not that I've ever seen, if I'm honest with you. I mean, I've seen Ellies often kind of putting their trunks towards their ears, but I've never actually seen one with an ear infection. It would be a difficult thing to know anyway. Obviously, unless there's some sort of oozing or some sort of sign that things are coming out of their ear, you wouldn't really know. It's obviously a very large ear, a canal that they've got. So it would be a bit tricky to know exactly kind of if they did. They'd be a bit grumpy, I would imagine, if they had a sore ear, and so you would know that by their behavior. But I've never actually seen one, and I've never heard of somebody treating an elephant with an infected ear. The one thing about Ellie's ears that's quite interesting is that they have a very... Sorry, there's just some of the park rangers that are going to come through. They're obviously going to go and control the numbers that are at the lions at the moment, so they're all heading in that direction. But with an ear of an elephant, what you'll notice is that they have an incredible amount of hair actually around their ear, which will stop things like dirt and dust and various other things getting inside there and causing any sort of trouble and causing any issues. And so it keeps their ear nice and clean, and they're able to then kind of keep their ear in healthy condition, as far as I understand it. But like I say, I've never actually had anybody sort of tell me about it. I'll ask one of my friends that's a vet. I'll ask him if he's ever heard of ear infections in ellies. I suppose it does happen, but the other thing with wildlife is that their immune systems and their ability to recover from things is far better than what ours is. So us as humans, we tend to become ill, and we get, even the slightest cut can cause infections, and we really struggle with it. Whereas when you look at some of the animals out here, and that Inkahuma female is probably a prime example, with that massive hole in her hip that she's walked around with for over a year and a half, and yet she hasn't really succumbed to any infection. If you did that to a person, they wouldn't have survived. They would have been dead. And so, their ability to fight off infections and fight off issues is much better than what ours is. So I mean, the answer to the question is I don't know really, to be honest. I'm just giving you what my thoughts and ramblings are with regards to infections in Ellie's ears. And I'm just going to quickly catch up with the main part of the herd so that we can spend some more time with them. They're slowly just drifting away from us, so just want to try and go forward a little bit. So Lauren, an elephant sneeze, what does it sound like? It just sounds like a very big sneeze. It's almost a kind of a nasal sound that comes out of the trunk. I would try and do it, except that I'm absolutely useless as making that sound, if I'm honest. So it basically is much like when they breathe quite heavily now, and then you'll find that there'll be this kind of sort of sound that will come out of the trunk. Sometimes it even gets a little bit of a trumpeting kind of noise to it, but for the most part it's just a very kind of heavy breath that comes out of the trunk, and you'll find then a bit of discharge. Now, when I was in my younger days, and spent some time at the Sheldrick Foundation, or the Wildlife Trust, and they have their little orphans there, you'd often get sneezed on by them, and you'd get covered in this thick mucus, and it's basically I suppose it's just much like any other animal sneeze, really. Sounds very, very similar to that, and then they get a little bit of a discharge, and it's not a good thing if you see it in baby elephants. It can be a sign of pneumonia, and they get that if their immune system has been severely compromised, and that could be, in the case of those orphans, is because of the whole trauma of what's happened suppresses their immune system and they get ill. But if you see it in the wild, it's not generally a very good sign to see baby elephants sneezing and discharging mucus. It means that there could be a major issue, and like I say, they do get these kind of illnesses where they can actually die from it, so you've got to be a little bit careful with that. But isn't this cool? I told you there were a lot of elephants around here. They literally are wall-to-wall elephants all over the swamp at the moment. And you can see what's happening now, though, is as the sun is starting to heat up, they're all starting to move out of these open sections, and they're now slowly but surely starting to move towards the Mara River and towards the thickets that line the Mara River. What are you doing, little one? What have you got there? It's obviously found itself something tasty that it wants to eat. It was on its haunches just now, trying to kind of dig it out, and so it's found whatever tasty element it wants. But what they're going to do is they're going to sweep across the swamp. The swamp is a good place to feed, and then they're going to go into those thickets where they're going to get a lot more shade and be able to get out of this hot sun. As the sun starts to heat up, we know that ellies obviously their body temperature goes up, and so what you'll find is that they start to move off these open sections and then into the forest areas, and then what you'll find is the reverse later in the day, when they will basically do the opposite and start to come up, and then they start to head up towards the escarpment. I just want to have a quick scan with binos. I thought I saw maybe... Is it an elephant or is it a rhino? Come on, show yourselves. I've just got the bum at the moment. No, it's two ellies that are there. It looked a little bit like a rhino's bottom, which would have been nice to kind of see. They're right off in the distance, but the last black rhinos I saw were actually right where we are right now. Good. Okay, well, we're going to sit and see what else we can find in this general area. I'm sure there's lots of other little things to look at around the swamp, and so while we do that, let's send you back across to James, who's caught up with another spotted animal, but not a cat.
Yes, we have found the world's second fattest hyena. The fattest hyena in the world is Waffles of the North Clan. This one is the second fattest. We think it's been eating something. Did you hear the lions again?
Behind us.
And it is also drooling some slime from its mouth, which it seems to be saving as some sort of meal for later. That is utterly disgusting. Wipe your face. We're wondering if this hyena hasn't perhaps seen the lions. So as I said, we did leave the Ngumas to see if we could find the others that were calling here. I suspect quite strongly that this hyena has been the beneficiary of some Nkuhuma hunting. It's not got blood all over its face, which makes me think that perhaps it's, ate a while back. It really is quite foul, isn't it? The saliva has congealed into jelly. I think this thing has heard the lions calling as well, and it is wondering itself where they are. No, Sean, this hyena doesn't care one bit at all for my strange Homo sapien preferences. I think it's a big fat male hyena. It's definitely listening. Now the lions were calling from behind, I think, that hyena. Let me just move back slightly. There we go. Becky, I think this is the least sick hyena I've seen. It is in superb condition. The fur is as good as a hyena's fur can get. Standing up, looking sharp. I think it's salivating because it's eaten. Now that's a good-looking, healthy hyena. Strong muscle tone. I'd love to know if any of our hyena experts recognize this one. We are on Torchwood, so quite possibly this is not a member of the Juma clan. Yeah, Crystal, who's one of our hyena experts, says she is not recognizing this hyena immediately. This hyena is thinking, listening. What have you got there?
Hippo outside the water.
A hippo. Oh, yes. T-Money, this hyena is alone because that's what happens with hyenas. There's a hippopotamus walking on its own, also out of the water. It's probably been checking at Torchwood Water to see if there's enough to lion and deciding that there isn't. The hyena is on its own because that is how they forage, T-Money. They forage alone quite a lot of the time, and then they'll whoop if they find something that they think is worth a collective stealing effort. Otherwise, they will often not live, but certainly forage alone, especially the males. It's quite big for a male if it is a male. There's a slightly gormless looking face about it. I think it's the drool though. There's nothing gormless about hyenas. Hyenas are highly intelligent, sophisticated creatures. But that thing has eaten a lot. Where are you going? Come on, lead us to the lions. I think I heard the lions from the direction that she's looking in now. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Public. You say you had an old uncle that used to drool like this. Mr. Public, I might remind you, of course, that that uncle was once young, as you are probably right now. And you too will be old and probably drool at one stage, same as I will. I have to remind myself of that. One day I will be sitting on a chair, having to wipe my mouth. Hopefully I'll still be capable of doing that. Just keep watching. The squirrels are shouting, but I think they're shouting at the hyena. Magnificent hyena, that. Really, I think that's an impressive specimen. Right, let's just drive along the road now and see if we can't pick up the other lions. It'll be quite fun. While we do that, let us go back to Tristan in the Masai Mara with his elephants and the grass in about 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
With some Ellies, but they've just done a dirty and changed direction and left poor James having to swivel quite fast because they crossed the road and then kind of, instead of keeping on the trajectory that they were on, they moved off a little bit to the left, so they went past where our roof is, and so we couldn't actually put them on camera, and now they're walking away from us, unfortunately. It was quite nice because they were right next to the road, so there they are, just off on our left hand side, and they've slowly but surely feeding their way away from us. It's quite interesting. I was watching them now. They were sort of feeding and the young one was suckling, and then they slowly kind of ambled across the road as Ellies do, and then they all stopped around a little section where there was some dung from another elephant, and they all kind of had a little sniff, and then they've walked off in the direction of where that elephant must have gone. There's a whole bunch of other Ellies that are down in the swamp at the moment, a little bit further on, and I think they're just trying to kind of follow. And so what happens here is often a lot of the groupings will sort of break apart. I mean, we see it down in Juma as well. I mean, they break apart a little bit during feeding courses, and then they kind of come together again when it's time to move. So this might be just a family grouping that's now just trying to sort of track down where the rest of the herd is and then join up again. So that's why they probably took an interest in that particular dung that was there, maybe a member of the herd that they actually know. But what we've got is a very old female on the right hand side, and then we had her two youngsters, and then there looks like a older female towards the left as well. Now that might be her eldest daughter. It would be a bit tricky to know for sure. It is a big elephant, so it could be her oldest daughter that we have kind of moving around, and then you'll have her offspring, so from oldest to sort of middle, and then to the youngest on the right hand side. That would be a rough guess. Or what we've got is the oldest one on the left. That might be her young ones, are these ones over here, and then it's just grandmother that's walking around. But it seems as though these two stick very, very close, and she's lactating, so I'd imagine that that small one is indeed for the biggest of the females that we see here. Very cool though, isn't it, as they just kind of amble off. Oh, good to see lots of Ellies. It makes me happy when I see a lot of elephants. And been a bit dry on the elephant front when I left Juma. We weren't seeing very many of them at all, and so it's very, very nice to kind of have lots of herds around. And this area where we're in now is always a very special place. Now, James, I don't know if you can get straight in front of us. There's a bird that is flying, and it's a bird of prey. Now, oh, it's just dropped down. Looked like maybe a Montague's or a pallid harrier. It was one of the two of them. I'm going to go try and see if we can get a little closer and see if it's just landed somewhere there. They can be quite tricky to tell the difference between the two of them, so we're going to go and have a little look. I did see grey and I did see little white windows, which would make it one of those two. I just have to get a little closer before we have a look. If it's not there, I'll show you pictures of it anyway, so you can see what I'm talking about with regards to these two birds. They're both beautiful harriers that you get out here. You do see them sitting on the roads a little bit further south when you head towards kind of the Salt Lick side. Often find them on the main road there. So now I'm just going to look carefully. It went down just behind this thicket. Problem is if it's in the grass trying to catch something, it's going to be almost impossible to see it. I was hoping that maybe it landed on a small stump or something like that. They often do sit on little stumps just above the grass line, and you can actually get quite a good view of them. So let's just have a little look. No, I've lost it. They've lost it. I don't know where it's gone. Anyway, let me show you quickly what I'm talking about before you guys think I'm all crazy. Some of you might already have them on your list, but somewhere in that direction is where I last saw it flying. It's a fairly small bird of prey in comparison to some of the eagles, but they are still should be fairly visible in this. Let's find harriers quickly. There we go. All right. So this is the pallid harrier, which is the one that you do see quite a lot. I saw them when I was last year, like I say, quite regularly sitting on the roads. You often find them on the road itself. And so this guy, you can see, has got this grey kind of coloration, yellow legs and the yellow cere, and then the juvenile you can see is a complete sort of brown coloration with those little white eye stripes. Now, the Montagues, which should be next, there we go, you can see looks very, very similar, doesn't it? Also grey with yellow legs, yellow cere, but it has the streaking on the belly that helps you when you see them kind of sitting. And then the juvenile, well, they are quite similar, except that the white does not extend as far on the Montagues as it does on the pallid. And then in flight, hopefully I can find a flight thing here, they've got the black sort of tips to it, whereas I think the pallid has a more white under wing. There we go. So the pallid's got that more whitish color there. So I would imagine that what we saw was a pallid. It looked a lot more like that than it did the other one, which is very cool. So there's a bird that you can see both of these in the Sabi Sands. In fact, I have seen both before, but they like more open grassland, so you see them more in the central parts. And Brent should have seen these guys too when he spent time at both Singita and Londolozi. He would have probably seen them. And talking about Brent, let's send you back across to him and see if he's had any more luck tracking that leopard.
Unfortunately not. We haven't been able to find the track, so we've just been sitting in this little river system very quietly listening. And while I'm here, I noticed something. Now you can see there's a bit of green grass coming out here. But something has made this little puddle a lot bigger. It hasn't been used now because it's not wet. But you can almost imagine something, getting comfortable in here. Oh, it's quite comfy, you know. It's a good spot. But obviously, I'm a lot skinnier than what's made this big hole in the mud here when it was wet. So I want you to tell me, what do you think made this very round hole in the mud here? Now, it's not something that would have stopped by and left. It would have been here for quite some time. And definitely even over 10 days a week while there was still mud here. And if we get a little bit more rain and the mud fills up here a bit more, there's a strong possibility that this creature will come to rest here again. And it's a big animal, as you can see. Ah, well done, Jasia. Indeed, it is a hippopotamus. So with the drought, this little spot here actually held water for a very long time. And it's got some nice shade during the summer months, so there's some big tambuti trees. They obviously don't have their leaves at the moment, but with all the pressure for water from other hippos and whatnot, one of the young male hippos who wasn't able to compete for his spot in one of the big pans decided that this was a mosquito, a good spot to come spend his days. And obviously in the summer months when there was a lot of leaf and cloud cover, not cloud cover, leaf cover here, it was a very good spot because this particular spot is the junction of two little river systems, so it holds water for quite a long time. And even now, the hippos are using areas like this. Further downstream from here, there's a spot where they do it in the sand, hiding under a fallen knobthorn. But this has been dry for quite some time. Minamu wonders which season makes tracking the easiest. Well, the dry season, Minamu, and in more particularly the last 2 weeks before the first rains is the easiest to track. Let's have a quick look over here. Now, we've got lots of flowers. Well, they don't really look like flowers. There we go. Yeah, those are tambuti flowers. Of course, it's going to be a while till we get the jumping jacks. Those tambuti seeds that have, or jumping beans, that have the little moth larvae in them. And when they're trying to escape, they just jump, jump, jump. But anyway, we're going to keep searching and this little river system. While we do that, let's go across to James Henry to see what he's looking for next.
What we're looking for are the lions. We haven't found them though, unfortunately. So we're just going to stop and listen for a second, and we're going to look at that euphorbia tree. Now, I'm going to try and discover which euphorbia tree that is, which species of euphorbia. They can be quite difficult to discover, especially as there are so many of them. Good grief, there are a lot of them. Right, well, it's not the rubber euphorbia. It is not triangularis. Some of them don't even have species names. I think that's Euphorbia ingens, actually. I think it's the most common one. Euphorbia ingens, we'll go with that. Otherwise known as the naboom in Afrikaans. Or in Tsonga, unkonde. Yes, Bree, this is the African equivalent of a cactus. We do not get African cactuses, we only get euphorbias. And they are the evolutionary equivalent. So succulent, thorny, and able to normally live in very dry areas. I'm just quickly... Oh, it's used by the vendor and the Sutus. I'm reading this, of course. I'm not remembering this. As a cure for cancer. Also used as a cure for ulcers and as a fish poison. This is the latex that's inside. Now, whether or not that is efficient or effective or not remains to be seen. Latex is highly toxic, causes severe irritation, blisters of the skin, and a drop in the eye can, cause blindness and loss of the eye. Cattle driven into these plants can be so affected that they have to be put down. However, the latex is used mixed with sugar and water as a purgative. An overdose of this will be fatal. Goodness, so it's got quite toxic latex. Kudu will eat it, interestingly. I've seen kudu and elephants, I think, eating them, unaffected by the hugely toxic latex therein. Very nice. The lions haven't called again. We went past where their old kill was, and we didn't find anything but a few vultures. And maybe the rest of them are lurking in this dry riverbed. I don't know. It's now starting to warm up quite a lot, so I suspect that they're going to go and do what lions do best, of course, which is sleep like the dead. Yes, Lauren, it absolutely does have spikes like cactuses do. Let me show you. We have many euphorbias. I brought my tree book with me, you see. Where's a good example? There. No, that's a bad example. 1 second. 1 second, please. 1 moment, please. There, look at that picture there. That's Euphorbia grandiolata, and those are the spikes on Euphorbia grandiolata. They all have spikes like that, and I think that this one is Euphorbia ingens, which is on the next page. There, you can see it is very big, but it does have spikes, and it has much in the way of latex. Very good. Okay. Very nice book, this one. Not a great key, but a fantastic book. Alrighty, we'll keep looking and keep trying here while we go back to Tristan, who has got some birds on the ground that are not ground-dwelling birds.
Indeed we do. We've got many birds, actually. And we're at the 2 dead buffalo. And the reason why we came here is actually because Adam told me last night that there was a Egyptian vulture here, so I wanted to come and try and look for our Egyptian vulture, because Brent has gone on and on about how he has found an Egyptian vulture in the Mara, and Adam was telling me that he's seen actually quite a few of them of late, and so I thought I'd come and have a little look, but unfortunately it doesn't seem like it's here today. So it's only the white-backed repels and hoodeds that I am seen so far. There's also been a tawny eagle that was around a little bit earlier, and so no sign of our Egyptian vulture. But I must say though, the repels vulture, it's good to see them again, because funnily enough, this is quite surprising I'm sure for a lot of you, that when I was here in May there were very, very few vultures, and no repel vultures at all. They're often following the migration around, and so we didn't see many at all, and they are beautiful, beautiful vulture. If a vulture can be beautiful, I suppose that they are one of my more favored ones. I really enjoy seeing them. So if we go a little bit to the left, James, there's one that's just left there. There it is, with a cream colored beak. So you'll see them there with that kind of different colored beak to the rest of the guys, and they've got that sort of mottled wing pattern as well. So they're a beautiful species of vulture, and obviously we don't see them down in South Africa. There has been a reported case once, funny enough, near Hoedspruit, of all places, up against the mountains there, of a repel vulture flying around, which is very, very odd. It could, I suppose, potentially be an escapee, but it was seen there and was only seen, I think, 2 or 3 times, and then it disappeared completely. So up here in East Africa is the best place to be able to get them. Now, James, you see one there's got a stick in its mouth. I wonder if that one's busy in the process of nesting, because it grabbed a stick. It's it's right in the middle now. It's now put the stick down, so it'll be difficult to see it. But basically in the middle of all of those vultures, there was one that's carrying a stick. Maybe a little bit more right, Jeff? A little bit more right, somewhere there. There it is. You can see the stick in the background. Now that might be for nesting material. Sometimes you'll find vultures will line their nest with all kinds of sticks, and then as the sort of base structure, and then from there they'll use grasses and things to be able to just make it a little bit softer. But I'm surprised it was carrying it around. It's not. There's 2 or 3 of them that are picking it up and putting it down again. What are you guys up to? I wonder if maybe. Interesting. Normally when they pick stuff up like this, they fly away quite quickly with it if they are building nests. So I don't know why it's got it if it's not going to use it for nesting material. Maybe there's a bit of blood and bits on it that it's trying to get off, but it would be much easier, I would imagine, to go towards the carcass itself and go and feed off the actual carcass rather than feeding anywhere else. What is that that's flying off there? Hold on, I just want to have a little look. It's a steppe eagle that's flying off, so it's kind of taken off and flown quite far away, unfortunately, but it's got the white sort of patch on its bum. And you should start to see steppe eagles down in South Africa shortly. They should have migrated. They would be migrating down there now, and so there should be some steps starting to arrive. If anyone's going to find them, I'm sure Brenty will. Now, I believe a lot of you are saying that you saw the Egyptian vulture yesterday afternoon, which is very, very cool. James actually told me that he saw it, so really nice that they are around. It's an epic bird to see. It's not something, obviously, that you see very often, and we've spoken about it before down in South Africa. There's that one record kind of hanging around in Kruger. Unfortunately, that bird hasn't been seen for quite some time. The last time it was seen was up against the Mozambique boundary, and then it hasn't been seen in a while. So I'd imagine that potentially that bird has maybe drifted off into Mozambique and is no longer actually around the Kruger area, which is a bit of a shame. It's not very nice that it's left us. I was hoping it was going to make an appearance in the Sabi Sands. Maureen, well, hello, vulture. That vulture almost took my head off. It flew almost over the bonnet. But Maureen, the thing about vultures is that they have probably one of the best eyesights of all the birds out here, and so they have an incredible set of eyes. And so what they'll do is that they'll soar above something, and then they'll notice that if that animal flicks a tail or moves a head, or even the movement of its body as it breathes, it will try and kind of work that out, and it will know then, okay, that animal's alive. The other thing that vultures will use is predators. Remember that things like lions or a leopard or cheetah on the scene generally would mean that the animal that is lying next to them is dead, and they will then be able to feed off that. What we're going to see now, though, is going to be very cool. One by one, these vultures are going to start taking off now. There's not much left of these carcasses, and so you'll see that they'll take a run up, and then they're going to fly off. And so we've already had one or two do it, and as they're sort of waking up, you can see some of them were sleeping actually in this area. As they're starting to wake up, they're going to stand up and they're going to trot a little bit, so it's almost like a runway, and then they take off and they're going to go and land in some of the trees around, or they're going to ride the thermals that are up and about now and try and catch those thermals and go off and into the sky to go and look for the next carcass to try and see if they can find themselves something else that they're able to then go and feed off, because these buffalo carcasses unfortunately are all but finished. I'm afraid there's very, very little left of the two carcasses. T-Money, no, I haven't seen a turkey vulture, unfortunately. I would like to see one, I think, at some point. I've seen a black vulture, but I've not seen a turkey vulture. So one day I will try and find one and see it. We don't get them in this part of the world, or East Africa or South Africa. We don't see turkey vultures at all. So I would hope that, you know, one day in my travels that I will be able to find one of them and see one of them. It would be nice if that was the case, and that we were able to find one somewhere along the line. It's fairly common in some places, so I suppose it's very possible if we go actually looking for them and be able to find them. There goes a little hooded vulture. This hooded vulture has got a very white face. It's quite a good looking hooded vulture actually, if I do say so. It's a little bit different to the others, so not an Egyptian, even though the Egyptians do get white on them. There is a few little distinguishing factors, and that is most definitely a hooded individual. You can see its eye with its little kind of white ring around it separates it out from the Egyptian vulture. The nice thing is when Egyptian vultures are young like this, they do resemble a hooded vulture, but in flight they also can be easier to identify. An Egyptian vulture has got a very diamond shaped tail, much more diamond shaped than what you see from a hooded, so if one was flying around here we would also be able to find it. But you can see a couple of them kind of moving off. I think it's all but done now, and so most of them you're going to find are going to start kind of moving off and finding some other food item. Right, we're going to carry on as well. We'll see what else we can go and find. We're going to go down towards the Mara River just to go see how it is, and while we do that though, let's send you back across to Brent, who's still on the search for Tingy.
Well, I think we're abandoning our search for the leopard now. I think he's gone into Torchwood, to be honest. So we're going to move out of the little river system. As I said, we heard some elephants off to the north of us. So we're going to slowly head in that direction, maybe catch up with the Ellie herd and see if they're maybe not on their way towards the Djuma Pan for a drink. It's starting to get really warm. Oh, what died here? Ha. Something quite big. There's the bottom jaw. That's the top of the skull. Obviously, it looks like the hyenas have eaten the face off. But actually, I don't think these are from the same thing. Let me just have a quick look here. There's another piece of bottom jaw. No, they are. They are. It's just been funnily chewed, this head. So, it doesn't have horns. Oh wait, we need that one. And you can see the teeth. Definitely a herbivore's teeth. Who can guess what creature is this that has expired down here? It's been definitely fed on by hyenas and moved around. Bones have been scattered through this thicket. It could have been killed by lions. It is a very old kill. And then dragged into the shade. As you can see, a lot of the bones are all spread out under quite a nice little shady thicket underneath a guarri, a spikethorn, and a combretum. Mrs. Grumpy says waterbuck. You're on the right track, Mrs. Grumpy, but I don't think it's a waterbuck. But it is definitely an antelope. Another big antelope species we get here, without horns. Ah, Kalina, not a wildebeest, because both male and female wildebeest have horns, Kalina. So not a wildly beast. Let's have a look through here. Ooh, Jonathan. Impala. An impala would be much, much smaller than that, Jonathan. There we go. Well done, Alana. It is indeed a kudu. A female kudu that was killed there a long time ago. Possibly even longer than 4 years ago, because I don't remember any lions there. Oh, it might have happened while I was on leave, or hyenas there for that matter. But that carcass looks very old. Well, it's not even a carcass anymore. It's just a bunch of old bones. And so we're going to head north now towards where we heard those elephants. They sounded quite far away, but we've still got time. And the good thing about being tall is you can use your long legs to step quickly through the bush. Oh, look here. That's nice. Now, we're probably going to see kudu and bushbuck and inyala and even impala taking advantage of these buffalo thorns. You can see nice little green shoots popping out now, and very nutritious, very delicious if you are a browser, and also quite delicious if you're a human being. You can put it in your salad. Yeah. Mid-morning snack. While I chew on my Ziziphus macronatum, let's send you to James, who's looking for the rest of the lions.
I've given up on looking for the rest of the lions. I think we may well have found them somewhere in that drainage line, but they would have been flat and asleep, and I thought that we'd rather come up and look for Thandi and Tlalamba. Thandi is not been seen for some time now, and I don't know where she is. I hope that nothing's happened to her. I don't expect that it would have, but I would like to know where she is. And I'm wondering if she isn't perhaps making a little space between Shidulu and her for young Tlalamba to live in. I might be entirely wrong, but I wonder if that's not what's going on. It's obviously much too early for Tlalamba to start marking a territory. Maybe she's come into estrus and gone out of her territory. That's possible. They do that, these leopards. Well, best she doesn't get caught by Tingana mating with someone else. We know what happens then. But this is the area that Tlalamba has been lurking around in. How's my signal there? Is it all right? Apparently it's not bad. Okay. It might go a little dodgy as we go through this dip. But we need to check these areas for our little leopard, who we will miss greatly if we do not see her again very soon. Either mother or daughter, either will do. Richard, the female on the eastern side of Torchwood is Nkanyeni, who is unrelated to the, well, possibly distant cousin, but as far as we're concerned, unrelated to our royal leopard lineage. We used to see her quite a lot when we were on Cheetah Plains, but she's the one who occupies the eastern parts of Torchwood. I suppose there could be a little space there to sandwich little Tlalamba in the middle between the two. But like I say, that won't happen for a while. Let's look at a bird, because it is something other than the back of my head. There it is, the magpie shrike. Hello, magpie shrike. Good morning. How is your Sunday going? Good? Fantastic. Are you looking forward to a nice brunch later? With your friends, perhaps? Not a very communicative magpie shrike, this one. Possibly mute. Or doesn't speak English, one of the two. Do you speak English? Do you speak English? I don't know if you've ever noticed this, I'm sure you have, but when somebody doesn't speak English, the English speaker then just starts to speak more loudly to the person who doesn't understand the vocabulary. Do you speak English? I mean, it's really silly doing that, of course, because it doesn't matter how loud you speak, it doesn't make the words any more understandable. I think this bird is in a sulk. Indigo girl, of course I speak Shrike. What a question. I speak beautiful Shrike. I'll speak it now. Are you ready? What I said there was, why don't you talk to me? Why are you so unfriendly? Where is your holiday spirit? That's what I said to it. But it has not replied to me. The rest of its flock seems to be off to the left-hand side of your picture. Now it's yawning, it's so bored of me. Nancy, number 68 on your bird list, the unfriendly magpie shrike. Okay, it's not actually yawning, it's gular fluttering because it's getting a bit hot now. And of course this bird has got black feathers, which means it's going to heat up more than others if it continues to sit there in the sun. One of the very interesting things that we've discovered using the T1K FLIR thermal camera is that feathers are exceptional insulators. And if you look at a bird in the night, despite the fact that they run hotter than mammals most of the time, they actually give off less heat, and that's because their feathers are such superb insulators.
Don't move.
Okay, I won't move. What have you seen?
No, you can't.
Now you're going to see my haircut that I did myself. That, everybody, is a cicada. A little cicada that has found its way onto my collar. I wonder if I can capture it and discover whether it's a male or a female. Now, you can actually see whether it's a male or a female by looking underneath it. Can you see it there? Was it too close?
Let's see. Very good.
Let me move it out of the shadow. The sound-making organs are just at the base of the abdomen, sort of where it joins the thorax there. This is a female. Sorry, I keep getting my hat in the way. So basically, there, below those last legs, is where you'd find a gap where the organs are, where they make their noise. So this, I'm pretty sure, is a female. They cannot make the bzzz noise that you can hear around us. Mary, I'm not going to eat it. I'm not an eater of cicadas. Why do you not fly away? Have you seen the magpie shrike? Indigo girl, you want to know if I can speak cicada? Of course I can speak cicada. I will do it for you now. Are you ready? It's quite loud though. I'm warning you. Here I go. That's that's cicada. And what I said to the cicada was, why are you sitting here with us? And in fact, the cicada spoke to me through telepathy, because of course female cicadas can only speak with telepathy. They don't have the sound-making organs. And this one said, I don't want to go near that magpie shrike because it will eat me. So that's why I'm sitting over here with you. One last thing I will show you is that on these wings, you can see the hemolymph. You can see the little veins You see those little veins that are filled with the insect equivalent of blood, which is known as hemolymph, and the rigidity of the wings is maintained with hydraulic pressure. So only by pumping hemolymph into those veins do the wings stay rigid enough for this cicada to fly. This particular one is not enthusiastic about flying, as you can see. Very good. Do you want me to leave you here, or do you want to come with me? Oh, all right. Yes, we'll let you go just down the road. Good. Right, I'm now going to go and release this little cicada away from the dangers of the unfriendly magpie shrike while you go back to Tristan in the Martha Mara.
Well, James, I hope that you have not ended that poor cicada's life by talking to it and luring it in with your tones that can't help itself but go to, and then find itself in mortal danger from the shrike. You'll have to speak to the shrike as well using your newfound dialect to basically tell it not to eat said cicada. Now, this might not be a lot of zebra, but this is more zebra than I have ever seen in the Mara before. No, not ever, but I'm talking about in terms of with SafariLive. There is definitely a lot more than there were when I was here last. It's really actually quite nice to see lots of them kind of moving around through the plains and milling about. You can see them all over the place, actually. They sort of kind of stretching out all across this open area. There's a bit of dust bathing that's going on, which is quite nice, and they're kind of moving off to the left-hand side. And why they're moving this way is because this is one of the few places where there's actually some water. Now, obviously the Mara River has water, but there's a little area just to our left that's almost a bit marsh-like, and that has a bit of kind of green grass, one, and two, it has a bit of water in it. Now, it might be a little too far for James to go all the way around, but that's where they're kind of moving off to, is to try and get the last little dregs of water that is inside there. You can also see lots and lots of white storks or European storks in the background as well. They apparently, according to Brent, he was telling me that during the winter months that they actually didn't leave. So surprisingly, I would imagine because of how wet the Mara was, there was a lot more food, and that meant that they could stay much longer. Normally they would have traveled further north and gone back up into Europe, into Germany in particular, and then come down again now, but they apparently stayed all the way through, which is quite interesting. And so they'll often find them around these areas. They'll also be looking around for all kinds of little insects and food items, and you can see just how dry the Mara is. It's kind of a bit of a mind warp for me, because last time I was here in this exact spot where we are now, where those zebras are walking and there's big billows of dust coming up from their hooves, that was all water. So there was water everywhere here. In fact, this entire road at one point was just water, and you couldn't drive really very well here. You could, I suppose, cross it, but it was tricky to get through. I'll actually try and find a video so you guys can see what I'm talking about, because it will sort of defy belief in many respects as to how different it looks now when you see all this kind of dust coming from these zebras' hooves in comparison to what it was a few months ago. And it just goes to show you how just a little bit of lack of rain and a whole movement of wildebeest through this section can make it seem very different to what it was. Now I'm trying to find the video of this road when I was driving it. There we go. So this is what this exact sort of spot that we're in looked like when I was last here. So this was on the 9th of May, as you'll be able to see. It's going to be probably a little bit on the tricky side. I'll try and kind of move it so that it's right. Is that all right there? So you'll see that. Oh, now I've messed it up. Sorry, James. There we go. So that is all water all over the road. That's not a very good video. I'll try to find a better one. I think I was doing a time lapse of what was going on. But that is what this area looked like when I was last year. This is the road that we're driving. This is the exact spot that we are sitting in right about now. That's where it looks like. And so very, very different to what it is now. And it really is quite cool to see it like this. It certainly is going to make driving around here a lot easier. I'm quite glad I didn't get stuck more than once, given how much water there was. And so it's going to be nice to not have to worry nearly as much about getting stuck, that's for sure. James, yes, I do. It's going to be interesting now with it being so much drier as if to see what it kind of looks like. But my favourite kind of section was right down in the southwestern corner up against the escarpment and the Tanzanian boundary. I really thoroughly enjoyed it down there. It's got big kind of obviously open plain areas, but there's some beautiful sausage trees down that way, and then there's a drainage line that runs that just has a kind of leopard feel to it, and it's where there was a female that had 2 cubs. She was down there around that area. So I used to thoroughly enjoy going down there. Often the cheetah are down there as well. That leucistic hyena clan hangs around in that area, and it's just, for me, is a very pretty sort of scene, because you've got nice big sort of open clearings, then you've got this drainage line with beautiful trees on it, and then you've got the escarpment as well quite close by. So it's a nice kind of mix of terrains all around you, and I don't know, I just like it down there. It's quiet down there, not that many people head off in that direction because of how far it is from everywhere, and so that's why I enjoy heading in that section. The other sort of place that I really enjoy is there is a road that runs kind of from the main road that takes you down to Puringat, and then it runs towards the river, and there's kind of a section there where you follow a drainage line and then you go through this drainage section, and it is absolutely beautiful. The unfortunate thing is that we probably won't be able to show you that, because that, as far as I understand, has 0 signal in it. I'll try and just double check with Brent, but the last time I spoke to Brent, he was telling me that it's not great for signal, but it is seriously pretty. You kind of wind your way just back and forth through this drainage section, and beautiful trees as you go, and it just feels like you're in a different place than the Masai Mara. The other really nice spot is where we've just come from, so that swamp area, the Samaki Swamp. That area is absolutely beautiful. It's a great place for birding. Funny enough, it's one of the few places in the triangle where you can go look for flufftails, which is not a bird that I think we've ever put on camera, and we'd be very lucky to put it on camera. They're very shy and elusive little birdies. They're quite tricky to see. We do get them in South Africa, but not in the Sabi Sands. I don't think there's any records in the sands. I'll show you what they look like now. But almost quail-like in their sort of appearance. Here we go. So you'll get, this is what they kind of appear to be. They're these small little birds, and they skulk around in thick marshy vegetation, and it makes it really tough to find them. Here in this part of the world, that's really the only place that you can go look for them regularly, but they're a beautiful little bird. So this is the little red-chested flufftail, which is the most common one we see in South Africa, but they all look very similar to this. They're kind of quite small, and they move around. There's a little streaky-breasted flufftail, so you see that's got a bit more orange on it. Striped flufftail, and I'll get to the one that I want to talk about the most, which is this one, this white-winged flufftail. Now, this white-winged flufftail is a very interesting one, because it was thought that it only bred in one specific spot in, I think it's Ethiopia. I'll double check now. It should tell us, actually. Let's just quickly have a little read here. Just give me 2 seconds. Ethiopia, there we go. So it's on the Ethiopian highlands that this little bird breeds. It was thought to be. And last year they discovered the first breeding pair in South Africa. So it's the only other place that they've ever been recorded breeding, as is in South Africa, and they found 2 nests actually, which is very, very cool. So the white-winged flufftail now doesn't only breed on the eastern highland slopes, it is also breeding in South Africa, which is absolutely amazing. So huge discovery for the birders that study flufftails in South Africa. It's not a bird, like I say, that's very common, and to think that they only thought it only bred in one specific spot and that it's now expanded its range is very, very, very cool. Right, we're going to leave our zebras to their drinks and moving about. They're actually all coming trotting along, and so while they do that, let's send you back across to James Henry, who has not found a predator, but something that I'm sure he was hoping the lions would be on the trail of.
Yes, we found buffalo, a herd of buffalo grazing through the woodland. Now they seem to like this area. We're near the northeast corner of Djuma, or the northwest corner of Torchwood, and this is now the second time in the last little while that I've seen them here. I'm going to move forward because we're kind of almost in the middle of the herd, which is quite nice. There are quite a few of them here. I think there are at least 100 animals. Not a massive herd. Oh, Lily, what a very good question. You know, I sometimes wonder this myself. You're just 3 years old and you say, where do these poor animals go when they get cold? Well, The answer is they don't go anywhere, really. If it's really rainy and not very nice and quite windy, then they'll go into some thick bush where they don't need to be out in the open, but they can't really go anywhere. This is where they live. And so when they get too cold, they have to just try and find some space somewhere where there isn't too much wind. But because we don't live in a very cold area, Lily, what you will find is that the animals don't suffer very much when it gets cold. It never snows here. It never drops below 10 degrees centigrade or so, about 45 degrees Fahrenheit. So it never gets very cold and the animals can survive. They're quite clever, these animals. You know, in wintertime, they get thick coats. Their fur gets a little bit thicker. And that helps them to stay warm. And these buffalo also then will lie right close next to each other on cold winter's nights. And that helps them to stay warm too. But they can't really go anywhere. They don't need to go anywhere. And you can just feel, perhaps, I'm sure everybody, that the morning is really quietening down. With the building of the heat, I think it's going to be a fairly, shall we say, vicious scorcher today. Paula, the accent that the buffalo speak with, I don't know really. I think it's probably, I think they're quite Cockney. I think that they speak with Cockney accents to each other. I'm not sure why I think that. They're definitely not French. They're not Irish.
What about mafioso?
Sebastian wondering if they have sort of Italian mafioso accents. I don't think so, no. I think they're too... I don't know. I don't want to insult Cockneys or anything, but I just got the idea that that's how they'd speak. Come along, Harold. Let's move on through this thicket. I don't think I want to, darling. I don't think, Hilda, that I think that this is a nice place to be. What do you think? I think it's perfectly lovely, Harold. Oh, well, I don't. You get the impression that they have that kind of edgy relationship with each other all the time. What's wrong with it, Harold? Well, I think it's not very green. Well, there's no green grass, Harold. The rains haven't come. Don't tell me the bleeding obvious. I can tell the bleeding obvious. I know it hasn't rained, but there's still not a lot of green grass over here. But, Harold, where else are we going to go? I don't know. Maybe I'll decide to go somewhere else. Well, maybe you'd like to tell me what that decision is then. Well, maybe I will. Or maybe you should. Well, maybe I won't. Well, why not? That's the kind of impression I get from buffalo when they're moving through grazing areas, deciding where to go. I might be wrong, though. I'm not using Scuba Steve's accent. Scuba Steve spoke like this. Oh, Hilda, he did have a little bit of a Cockney about him, but he spoke much more slowly. He had a very gentle way of speaking, did Scuba Steve. But by all means, I mean, suggest, if you would like to, what accent you think that the buffalo speak like. Kirsten now is saying she thinks that all of my accents are Cockney. I certainly do use it quite a lot when pretending to speak like an animal. It just sounds quite effective, I think, most of the time. I just don't think mafioso would work for them.
You know why I say that? It's because sometimes when they look at you, they look at you like you owe them money.
You're right, you're right. They do look at you as though you owe them money. So it could be something like that. I'm just trying to think of a female mafioso accent. Hey, Tony. Tony, I'm going to eat this grass over here. Oh, That's not a bad idea, Hilda. It looks like some good grass over there. Yeah, that's what I said. I think it's good grass over here. Well, then you shall go eat it. But maybe you want to come with me. Well, maybe I'm not going to come with you. Maybe I don't want to. But why don't you want to come with me? Because maybe I'm tired of being around you and the kids the whole time. How can you say that? We all got to hang together here in the hood. Otherwise, we're going to be eaten by lions. Well, maybe I want to be eaten by a lion. That's a stupid thing to say, Tony. Well, it might be a stupid thing to say, but don't you call me stupid. Don't disrespect me. You know I'm not stupid. I think you're very stupid. Don't talk to me like that. I'll talk to you anyway I like to talk to you. Mom, Dad, why are you fighting over the grass? I don't understand. Shut up, son. Don't tell your son to shut up. We could work, I suppose. Right, I think we were supposed to link somewhere, were we? Let's link to Tristan and ask him how the olive baboon of the Masai Mara speaks to other olive baboons of the Masai Mara.
He's not well, is he? I get this feeling that James is very bored this morning and is now trying to find ways to entertain himself by speaking as all the different animals. And I actually think what we're going to do is rather ask James to do the baboon accent, because it will be much funnier than I'll ever manage. We know that James is the one that likes to act and have his dramatic side exposed, whereas I just don't have it really, to be honest. I was never very good at it at school, and so I used to avoid any sort of plays as much as I could. I would always try and kind of somehow get out of having to do any sort of drama at school whatsoever. It was not my kind of thing, but anyway, we'll ask James to do it just now. But baboons are milling about, as baboons do. They just kind of slowly moving through the grasses and just looking for all kinds of different food items. I was actually just telling James about the baboons in Zambia, and I was quite shocked actually at how vicious those baboons are in that area. Now, there are a lot of predators there. There's a lot of leopards, there's lions, there's obviously wild dogs. They do see cheetah there from time to time, and so you would think that baboons would not be the sort of apex predator in that area. Well, you would be wrong. Now, baboons there are quite something, and actually the animal that's walking straight towards them is something that they go after quite regularly. They hunt warthogs there as well as impalas, which is quite insane. And while we were there, we must have seen drag marks for impala lambs. I don't even know how many different drag marks of baboons dragging impala lambs that they had killed. Taylor said to me she had seen them hunting warthogs quite a few times, and so they are quite vicious things in that particular area. And it goes to show you just how good they can be at predation. You know, often everybody kind of sees a baboon and always thinks about fruits and those kind of things, but these guys are heavy omnivores, and they will target all kinds of different animals, particularly the young. So, you know, piglets, little young impalas, and even small Thompson gazelles. As you can see, little Tommy gives you a nice idea of just how big. Tommy just chased the baboon away. Gives you an idea of how big a Tommy is. They're not the largest of animals, but their little young ones would also be grabbed by baboons. So as much as they are kind of animals that we see eating fruits and those kind of things, when they want to be, they can be quite nasty, and it was amazing watching them go about just following the impala herds around, waiting for them to drop, and as soon as they would drop, they would then basically, you know, grab it and then run off with the lamb. Now there's going to be a vehicle that's going to come past. I do apologize about that. We just have obviously on one of the main roads, and so there's lots of cars that do come past at times, but the Mara feels quite quiet actually. It doesn't feel as busy as what I thought it would be. I suppose we're right at the end of the season now. In fact, we're past the season at this stage, and so it shouldn't really be too busy at all. It should, I suppose, be a little bit quieter, which is quite nice. Now what I want to do from here is I'm going to quickly shoot towards the river. We don't actually have that much time, I suppose, so I'm going to try and just shoot towards the river. I just want to go and see what the river looks like in terms of its actual sort of levels. Also, Adam was telling me that, when was it? He said it was 10 days ago? 10 or 12 days ago, that there was actually a big crossing of wildebeest at the river. So you never know. We'll go and have a little look and see what's actually happening there. You might get lucky and see something. They're also telling me that a portion of the migration is still kind of hanging around the Tanzanian boundary. Michael, most definitely. That is, in fact, it was a toss-up this morning as to where I was going to go, whether it was going to be North Clan or just do a little Bumble just to familiarise myself with things again. And we went with the Bumble route. To be fair, though, we did get caught out completely by the male line that we spotted before we had even made a decision. And so from there, that's just kind of ended up how we've sort of meandered around and gone to where we've kind of been. And so, I will try and spend a lot of time with North Clan. Jamie is desperate for North Clan updates, and so I'm going to go and try and spend some time so that I can actually send her some updates on that, and she can also just help me figure out who's who. I am in no way able to identify the hyenas like Jamie does when it comes to that clan. So it'll be a learning curve for all of us, but we will be spending a lot of time there. I think it's a fascinating place to be. I don't actually even know where the den is itself at the moment. I'll have to just double check if it's still in the same place. But I'll get hold of Jamie and she can chat to the researchers and we'll try and just double check where exactly the den is. I know that Steve found, or was at the Olololo den yesterday afternoon, and he said it was heaving with hyenas, lots and lots of little ones. But I think it's time we go and catch up with Waffles and the like. So I'd like to spend quite a lot of time with them. And then, as we said earlier, try and spend quite a bit of time looking around for cheetahs and leopards and various other things. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, we're going to carry on. While we do that, though, let's send you back down to Brent Leo Smith and see if he's had any luck finding, well, anything this morning.
Well, I found lots of birds, lots of cicadas, and some serious heat that's starting to pound down. Now, Tristan, why don't you set yourself a real challenge? Stop looking for lions and leopards and cheetahs and go try find an Egyptian vulture. Steve found one, was it yesterday? So there's a challenge for Tristan. Go find an Egyptian vulture. And I'll look for a thick-billed cuckoo. Woo! Where are we going? Zoom. Oh no. I was hoping he was going to drop close by. It was a dung beetle at high speed. But alas, our big cat search today has been a little bit fruitless. But it's been nice out there. Oh, fun. This is always fun when you get people who don't really like being on camera. Let's go. On camera, we have discovered tech team. Oh no, are they finished? Or they're just arriving at the dam cam. They've been there for a bit. They look like they're trying to reverse the vehicle up to the back of the tree. Or that's just some really bad driving and they're trying to leave. I think it's bad driving and they're trying to leave. Oh, darn it. I thought we might catch Conrad up a ladder. That could have been quite fun. Yes, as Kirsten says, the ladies would have loved to see Conrad in his tight car keys, shaved head, up a ladder, probably sweating profusely in this weather. Those elephants seem to have moved off into Buffelshoek, unfortunately for us. And I was hoping we might catch some more ellies coming down towards the water as the temperature or the mercury starts rising. Well, bit of a play on words there. Everyone's saying they better fix that damn cam. Well, of course, I know you're not saying any bad words. You're referring to dam, a shallow depression that holds water. By no means would you be saying a naughty word, now would you? You guys are far too wonderful for that. Oh. I mean, when you see the Birchall starlings already seeking out shade, and it's not even 8 o'clock in the morning, you know it's going to be a stinker. Today is going to be properly hot. Well, one of the weather predicting thingamabobs, which I don't trust too much, say it's going to be 38, which is 101 Fahrenheit. I think it might might get to that, might even get a bit hotter. I'm trying to remember the hottest we've had out here was 44, 45. It was so hot that on the beginning of the afternoon safaris, our cameras just shut down and gave a heat warning. End of drive. Well, end of start of drive. And we had to go park in the shade, wait for the cameras to cool down. before we could even carry on with drive. So it does happen. And we've had a very cool November, December. Well, December's just started, but a very cool November compared to, or October, November compared to what we normally have at this time of the year. So I think we are due for some heat. But one must remember that the heat's quite good because it does build humidity and hopefully will bring some rain. We're supposed to get quite a bit of rain during December, or this area. Oof, there's nothing around. Wait, Craig, what's that? What is that? I think it could be a zebra. So you see there's a termite mound. You see a tail swishing. You got it. Can't really see what it is. It's quite far away. It is a zebra. Well, there we go. We found something. There's some zebra. Hopefully, when tech team fixes that damn cam, the zebras might come for a drink. Okay, well, we're going to keep meandering while we do that. Let's send you across to James Henry.
Second marula tree on the right. We're just looking for a woodland kingfisher, everybody. Yes, that is the tree, that is the bird, the woodland kingfisher. You're on it. That's it. You got him. Hello, pretty bird. With your little gangster mask. These could be French, you know, Sebastian.
Well, he's got the colours.
He does. You're right, actually. He's coloured like the French flag. I would very much like to know how it is, Sebastian, that the French ended up with a chicken as their national bird. I find that
Woodland kingfisher.
rather not a woodland kingfisher or something else like that, but the chicken.
Me too.
I've only just started thinking about that. The national bird of France, as far as I can make out, is the chicken. Kirsten says she needs an accent demonstration. I think I'm going to leave this to Sebastian, actually, because if I do a French accent in front of somebody who is in fact French, he'll be insulted. Sebastian?
And I just need to talk, really, right?
You just need to talk. You just need to tell us what the kingfisher is thinking.
Morning, everyone. Why are you looking at me? Why? What did I do? What do you want from me? Why are you saying I look like the French flag? Why? Would you like to hear my voice? Alright, I'm going to take off now.
Very good. All right, let's continue. Let's continue. Very good. I remember once I came out from the tech room carrying a piece of the drone equipment. It was during the last segment that we did, that TV series, the Gauntlet TV series, where we were out at sort of 2:30 in the morning. And I walked out having had coffee, and Sebastian clearly hadn't had any coffee by that stage, and I tried to take off his accent to him, and he looked me straight in the eye and he said, "I don't talk like that." Oh, sorry. Okay, we are not far from home. We're going to have breakfast now. Let's go back across to Tristan Dix, who has had all the animals today, this time in the Mara River.
Well, enjoy your breakfast, James, and hopefully your day will improve, that you are not going to be speaking to everybody in funny accents. Now, we'd expect a crossing of the Mara River, but maybe not of this particular kind to be doing it. Obviously it's famous for its wildebeest and zebra, but ellies will cross it too. And we come across a nice herd that's busy crossing a very, very low Mara River. It doesn't even look like the same place at all. You can see in terms of where the ellies' feet are, how sort of deep it is. It's almost sort of ankle deep for them. So not very deep at all, but at least there is some water still flowing, which is always a good thing, and that means that these guys are going to have a really good drink. And I would imagine a lot of the animals are having to come to this particular section for water. There's obviously not too much sort of still water lying about. It really is pretty much these kind of areas that they're going to have come and have a sort of drink at, and so the river makes a perfect place for that. Now, James, can you just zoom into the big female closest to us, to her trunk if possible, because it looks like it might be damaged in some way. It might have a little mark on it. It's going to be a bit tricky. Does it have a wound in it? Yes? No? Looks like it. Is there a hole in there, Kirst? I can't see nicely. It looks as though there's a big hole there. Now, that can probably happen from things like crocodiles. It does happen actually to elephants fairly regularly, is that there's these elephants that come down to drink, and a croc sometimes grabs onto their trunk, and there's a lot of crocodiles around. Behind all these ellies is all of the Mara giants that hang around this area. You can see some of them on the banks behind where the ellies are. They're all kind of just sitting and taking it easy. I'm sure they're all digesting massive amounts of wildebeest and zebra that they've eaten over the course of the last few months. Karen, you asking if there are crocodiles? There are many, many crocodiles. In fact, probably just in this particular section, there is at least, I would say, 20 that I can see at the moment in this small little area. So there's some very, very big crocodiles in amongst all of them, some very, very fat and wide ones. In fact, there's one that's just straight ahead of us that is massive. Is kind of the girth of this individual is quite big. So lots and lots of big crocs, and makes a beautiful scene, kind of sitting here with all the crocs on the bank, and then the ellies that are busy drinking as well. So it's very special to come down to the river and see it like this. It's much, much lower than what I saw it, and so it's nice to see it's kind of level, and to see some of the crocs that are actually here, because most of them were up into the sort of inflows of this river. They actually weren't in the river itself when I was last year. Anyway, though, it is that time of the day, though, that we are going to carry on our morning. We're going to be out for most of the day, James and myself. The rest of the team, though, are going to head back for breakfast down in Djuma. I'm sure they'll have a hearty one as per normal. It's been an absolute kind of, I think, a really wonderful morning. I mean, we've had leopard, we've had lions, we've had ellies, we've had buff, we've had a bit of everything, and we've even had Brentley Smith on walk, which is always very, very good. So from all of us, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hope that you've enjoyed it. Wonderful to be back, and we'll see you all this afternoon for the Sunset Safari.